Welcome to the ruins of Sector 50, where the only law is survival. In this post-apocalyptic wasteland, a giant machine known as the Golem holds the keys to life and death. When the Golem appears, the desperate residents rush forward with whatever junk they can find. If you give it the right scrap, it might just give you food. Among the crowd sits a boy in a black hood watching the chaos with eyes as cold as ice. He is different from the others, and they all know it. His name is Ray. While others struggle, he approaches the machine with a bag full of rare components. The trade begins and the stakes are high. The Golem drops a massive supply of food into Ray's bag. It is enough to feed a person for days, and the surrounding crowd watches with growing jealousy. As Ray enters 17th Street, his sharp senses pick up a group of followers. 7 people are tailing him in the shadows, hoping to steal his prize. The gang leader Ron steps out and blocks the path. He thinks he has the advantage because he has the numbers. Ray warns Ron that he already gave him a final chance. If Ron steps forward again, he will never be able to walk again. The legends speak of a ghost that lives on these streets. A white ghost that travels silently and sees right through your lies. Enraged by the boy's arrogance, Ron swings a heavy punch. He expects an easy victory, but he is about to face a nightmare. Ray dodges the strike with inhuman speed. To him, the movements of his enemies are slow and predictable. With a single swift counter, Ray sends the gang leader crashing into the dirt. The rest of the thugs charge in, but they are nothing more than targets. One by one, the gang falls to the ground. Ray moves like a shadow, leaving nothing but blood and broken bones in his wake. Since he was a child, Ray knew he was a monster. He does not feel pain or anger, and even as his peers cried in fear, he only felt a hollow silence. Ray might not feel emotions, but he can see them. He views the world through the color of mana vessels hidden within every person's chest. Anger results in red mana, while ridicule is blue and joy is yellow. To Ray, the world is bursting with a spectrum of colors that others cannot see. But inside Ron, he sees something different. A deep black mana that represents intense and paralyzing fear. Ray reaches out as his eyes glow with a terrifying light. He declares that a liar like Ron deserves a punishment that he will never forget. Walking through the heavy black rain, the ghost of the streets returns to the shadows. Ray has successfully survived another day, and he is not coming back empty-handed. He is met by Pale, the leader of the orphans who live beneath the city. In this cruel world, these children are the only family Ray has ever known. The younger kids swarm Ray with joy because he is their hero. Even though Ray lacks emotions, he feels a heavy weight of responsibility for their lives. Ray reveals a massive haul of food and supplies. While others struggle to find scraps, Ray uses his unique vision to take what the magic golems leave behind. 1 year ago, Ray was buried in the snow waiting for death. These children pulled him from the ice and gave him a reason to keep moving forward. Ray claims he is not hungry, but his body betrays him. Pale shares a simple piece of bread, reminding Ray that they survive as a team or not at all. But Ray cannot stay idle for long. Despite the dangerous black rain, he heads back into the night to secure more resources for the coming days. His target is the 18th Street warehouse. While the guards are distracted by gambling and greed, the ghost slips inside without making a sound. Inside the darkness, Ray begins to manifest his power. He draws in the colors of mana from the air and mixes them into a deadly formula of flame. Suddenly, a blade flashes through the dark. Ray is not alone. The warehouse is a trap, and his enemies have been waiting for him to step into their web. The guards are equipped with advanced night vision goggles. They laugh at the small rat trapped in their domain, thinking he is easy prey. They are wrong. Ray moves with a speed that defies logic. He strikes with precision and power that leaves the trained soldiers gasping for air. Ray reads the flow of mana through their bodies. He knows exactly where they will move before they even realize it themselves. One by one, the guards fall. Ray delivers a final crushing blow that silences the room, but the true threat is just behind the door. A shadow looms over the fallen men. Humphrey, the executive, has arrived, and he is not pleased to see his subordinates defeated by a child. The air crackles with lethal electricity. Humphrey stares down Ray with pure hatred. The real fight for survival begins now. Just when Ray thought he could slip away, the terrifying executive Humphrey emerges from the shadows like a demon. He looks down at our hero with absolute contempt, calling him nothing more than a little rat. Ray throws a desperate punch with every ounce of strength he has left, but it is like hitting a solid wall of iron. Humphrey does not even flinch as he prepares to crush the boy into the pavement. The monster is not just a tank, he is incredibly fast. Ray barely manages to weave through a barrage of heavy strikes that would have ended his life in a single heartbeat. Realizing he cannot win a head-on power struggle, Ray aims for the small gaps in Humphrey's defense. He pours his rising magic into a single focus strike that finally catches the giant off guard. A massive explosion of flames erupts as Ray unleashes his hidden potential to create an opening. While the executive is blinded by the heat, our protagonist vanishes into the rainy night. Ray is exhausted and cornered, but he refuses to give up. If he dies here, the young orphans under the bridge will have no one left to protect them from the ruthless Hector group. Just as he finds a dead end, a group of common thugs corners him in the darkness. They brandish sharp knives and demand he return the loot before they carve him open for fun. Ray does not hesitate any longer. He channels a violent surge of energy through his body that sends the thugs flying back into the mud, leaving them paralyzed with fear. The next morning, Ray is ambushed once again by a persistent assassin. He loses his footing on the slippery ground, and the goon swings a lethal blade down for a final killing blow. A sharp gunshot rings out through the alley as the legendary Niles arrives on the scene. The boss of 17th Street has stepped in to save Ray, and this battle is just beginning. Niles watches the ghost of 17th Street in action as Ray stands over a fallen enemy with cold indifference. The boss is impressed, but warns the boy that his early morning activities are getting dangerous. This is Niles, the undisputed king of the 17th Street slums. He governs this chaotic territory with a relaxed attitude, but his power is the only thing keeping the rival gangs at bay. Their bond goes back 1 year to when Ray fished a dying Niles out of the river. In exchange for his life, the former executive taught the boy the deadly art of combat. Ray makes a life-changing decision and offers to join Niles' organization officially. He knows that his strength is the only way to ensure the other orphans can survive another day. Niles narrows his eyes and drops a question that freezes the air. He asks Ray if he can use magic because he witnessed the boy lighting fires without a spark. Ray realizes he sees the world differently than everyone else. While others see nothing, he witnesses the swirling colors of mana flowing through the air like a rainbow. The peace is about to shatter as Hector begins importing truckloads of heavy weaponry. The 18th Street boss is preparing for a total invasion of Niles' territory. Back at the hideout, little Josephine bursts into tears at the sight of Ray's injuries. Ray is fascinated by how a single human can feel so many complex emotions at once. Ray looks at the blind storyteller Viola and sees a terrifying purple mana radiating from her soul. It is a color of emotion he has never witnessed in any other human being. The tension peaks as Hector himself arrives for a final negotiation. He looks down on Ray with a fake smile, but his presence screams of incoming violence. The terrifying Humphrey stares at the boy as he leaves the shop. He recognizes the specific wound on Ray's ear and realizes this child is the target he has been hunting. Niles emerges from the meeting with a dark expression and a final warning. The talks have failed, and the streets are about to turn into a literal war zone. Tension in the underworld has finally reached its breaking point. Niles is pushed to the edge and declares that there will be war because he refuses to let his organization be absorbed by his rivals. While Ray is out scouting, he spots a suspicious black car driving through Sector 50. He recognizes the heavy-hitter Humphrey inside and knows that the Hector group is making a massive move. A mysterious man in a sharp suit steps out of the vehicle. The soldiers address him as a mage, and his presence alone is enough to make the air feel heavy with an overwhelming sense of dread. Ray uses his unique vision to see the truth. The man possesses a terrifying amount of dark mana that is held back by strange glowing rings. This is a level of power that Ray has never encountered before. Ray rushes to the 17th Street base and runs into Kale, who is frantically preparing his men for the coming assault. Niles has already gone to the front lines to prepare for the inevitable clash. Ray leaves a chilling warning for the boss. He tells the guards that they must be wary of the man with the monocle. This new enemy is the true threat that could tip the scales of the entire war. The stakes are higher than ever for the orphans. If Hector wins the war, then all the street children will be sold into slavery, and Ray realizes that he cannot stay on the sidelines any longer. The war begins with a terrifying surprise. A massive stone golem emerges from the shadows and shatters the defenses of the Niles group. Bullets and blades are useless against its indestructible rocky skin. The golem charges a massive blast of blue energy and fires a beam that obliterates the street. In an instant, the elite soldiers of 17th Street are scattered and broken by the sheer force of the explosion. Ray arrives at the scene of the carnage and finds Kale barely clinging to life. The soldier is covered in blood and admits that they were not strong enough to stop the monsters brought by the Hector group. With the Niles group on the verge of total collapse, Ray draws his blade. He refuses to let the children lose their home and prepares to enter the fray to take down the monocle mage himself. 17th Street Central Plaza has been reduced to a literal graveyard, and Ray arrives just in time to witness the total destruction of his home. He frantically searches through the piles of rubble and corpses, but Niles is nowhere to be found. Out of the shadows, a massive stone golem emerges like a silent executioner, standing over the ruins. Before Ray can even process the horror, the monster strikes with enough force to shatter the surrounding buildings. As Ray struggles to breathe, his mind floods with memories of the children who once greeted him with smiles. The terrifying sound of the golem reveals the truth that this single machine is responsible for slaughtering everyone he loved. A cold and murderous rage begins to boil within the boy, who never felt human emotions. Suddenly, a car screams into the plaza as Niles arrives to save Ray from the golem's crushing stomp. But the tragedy is far from over when a sudden beam of blue energy pierces Niles right through the chest. With the last of his family gone, Ray's eyes turn a blood red as he vows to kill every single person responsible. Pitch-black rain falls as blood and sweat mix on the cold pavement. This is the end of an era for 17th Street. Ray clutches Niles in his arms. The boy who felt nothing is now staring into the abyss of loss. Rage explodes into a violent clash of magic. Blue and red energy tear the darkness apart as Ray unleashes his hidden power. I am a human with emotions. With those words, Ray ignites an inferno that defies logic. The ground itself turns into a river of molten lava. Ray stands at the center of the destruction he created. Niles is fading, even in pain. He manages to mock Ray for shaking him so hard. "You should leave this place. Go somewhere better." Niles gives his final order to the boy he viewed as a brother. Ray is left alone in the silence of death. The first emotions he ever felt are rage and despair. A scream of pure agony echoes through the ruins. The ghost of 17th Street has finally awakened his soul. The strength of his rage directly fuels his magic. Every spark of anger makes the flames burn hotter. Ray tracks his targets to the central square. He is no longer looking for answers, only revenge. With insane speed, Ray strikes Humphrey before the giant can even react. The predator has become the prey. Humphrey realizes this child is a monster. He is being overwhelmed by a power that makes no sense. Desperate to survive, Humphrey makes a shocking offer to the boy who just tried to slit his throat. Humphrey is desperate. He knows the ghost of 17th Street is the only one with enough power to survive the coming storm. The deal is simple. Ray must leave Sector 50 and find Humphrey's brother, who was sold to the City of Mages by Hector himself. But the path ahead is a nightmare. Humphrey warns him of a mage so cruel he is called a demon, a monster who freezes men whole for simple mistakes. Humphrey hands over a bag containing his entire life savings. He trusts Ray because despite his cold nature, Ray never breaks a promise. Ray accepts the gold but sets one final condition. Humphrey must take care of the bodies at the underpass and give them a proper burial. Before he departs, Ray seeks out Grandma Viola. He asks if the legend is true. Can a rainbow really grant any wish? He needs to know if a wish could bring back the dead. Ray is searching for a way to revive the family he lost in the fire. Just as Ray reaches his getaway car, an enforcer named Zephyr blocks the way. He thinks Ray is just another helpless brat from the streets. Ray does not have time to waste. He focuses his mana and unleashes a violent burst of energy that sends the thug flying like a rag doll. The engine roars as the car speeds through the desolate streets. For the first time in his life, the ghost of 17th Street is leaving the sector behind. Ray looted the supplies from the wrecked car knowing he had a long journey ahead. The ghost of 17th Street needed every resource to survive the trek to the next sector. Under the moonlight, he sat by a crackling fire contemplating the secrets of mana. He learned there are two types of power in this world: simple red mana and complex combinations that require precise timing. Mana manipulation is not just about skill. It requires raw human emotion. Ray attempted to channel his rage into the energy, but his cold nature made it nearly impossible to maintain. The energy spiraled out of control as he reached his limit. If he lost concentration for even a second, the mana would slip away like sand through his fingers. Determined to grow stronger, he began experimenting with compatibility. Some colors repelled each other, while others fused into something far more devastating. Ray looked out over the horizon with a newfound sense of purpose. He finally had a reason to push his magic to the absolute limit. He visualized the circular patterns of the monocle mage. If he could store mana in his own vessel, he could become the ultimate weapon. Meanwhile, back in Sector 50, the monocle mage was losing his patience. His soldiers had found nothing but scrap metal and rubble. I do not like people who do not understand me. With a cold glare, the mage pressed his cane against a terrified soldier and unleashed a wave of absolute zero. The soldier was turned into a human ice sculpture in an instant. A brutal reminder that failure under the Hector group meant death. The mage inspected the crater where his golem fell. He could still sense a powerful mana signature lingering in the air. This was no ordinary battle. When he heard an orphan might be responsible, the mage burst into a sadistic laughter. To him, the idea of a street rat mastering complex elemental magic was an utter impossibility. If an orphan really did this, then the world is about to meet a genius archmage like never before. Ray finally arrived at the gates of Sector 49, ready for the next challenge. Ray has finally reached the massive 49th sector. It is a sprawling urban jungle far larger and more complex than any place he has ever visited before. His mission is simple. He must find information on magic and track down the mysterious mage who holds the key to his ultimate revenge. While wandering through the crowded streets, Ray discovers a building called Veronica Bookstore. But he has absolutely no idea what that means. Before he can even process the sign, a girl with fiery red hair starts screaming at him from a window and accusing him of breaking her shop glass. Ray watches in silent fascination as a chaotic swirl of red and yellow emotions erupts from her like a prismatic storm he has never seen before. As night falls, Ray realizes he is being hunted by local thugs who believe he is just another helpless stranger walking through their territory. 4 men surround his resting spot and prepare to strike. They want his food and his keys, but they are about to learn a very painful lesson. The first attacker is sent flying before he can even register Ray's movement. This is not a robbery. It is a complete slaughter. Another thug tries to bash Ray's head in with a heavy metal pipe, but he catches the weapon with a single hand, as if it were a toy. Ray stares deep into their souls with glowing eyes and demands to know exactly who really runs these streets. The predator has become the prey. Ray stares down the terrified gang members with eyes colder than a winter storm. He demands to know exactly how much territory they have stolen in his absence. When one thug tries to lie, Ray does not hesitate for a second. He instantly crushes the boy hand under his heavy boot to show that he is playing for keeps. The terrified informant spills everything, including the name of their leader, Kedrick. They have taken over 14 streets and are operating out of an abandoned factory. Suddenly, a hidden assassin lunges from the shadows with a jagged dagger. He is aiming for a lethal strike, but he has no idea what kind of monster he is attacking. Ray unleashes a violent storm of mana that generates massive wind pressure. The attacker is slammed into the ground with bone-breaking force before he can even blink. Later, a recruiter named Waver approaches Ray in the city. He claims his boss was impressed by the way Ray handled their men and wants to offer him a job. The gang members are left speechless when Ray proves he can read their secret message. In a world of chaos, literacy is a sign of power that few common thugs possess. Ray finally arrives at the factory to meet the boss. Kedrick greets him with a confident smile that hides a deadly edge as he welcomes his new guest. Ray notices something incredible about the man across from him. Kedrick's ring is overflowing with a massive amount of mana, making him far more dangerous than any average thug. Kedrick reveals his dream of joining Merc Red. It is a legendary organization from Sector 45 that controls the shadows, and he wants Ray to be part of his grand vision. But Ray is not impressed by the offer. He looks Kedrick in the eyes and declares that he will never work for someone who is weaker than himself. The challenge has been issued. Kedrick is high on his own power, but Ray is not intimidated by the street boss. Our protagonist calmly explains that in the world he comes from, strength is the only language that matters. Kedrick snaps in a fit of rage when a subordinate interrupts him. He makes it clear that anyone who speaks without permission will pay a heavy price. Ray analyzes the situation and realizes Kedrick is not actually using his own magic. The massive amounts of mana are actually radiating from that mysterious red ring. Ray reaches out and touches the jewelry, which causes the red aura to vanish instantly. The sudden change is jarring as Kedrick becomes strangely calm and polite. Ray is done playing games and tells Kedrick exactly what he thinks. He looks him dead in the eye and declares that Kedrick is the weaker man. They agree to settle the dispute with a duel in 1 week. Kedrick wants a grand spectacle where everyone will witness Ray being crushed under his heel. Word of the upcoming fight travels fast, but some low-level thugs think they can jump Ray while he is alone. They have no idea what kind of monster they are dealing with. Ray leaves a trail of broken bodies in the street. This is not just a fight for him, but a training session to master his magic at a much faster rate. Everything is going according to plan as Ray baits more enemies into attacking. Every battle makes his spells faster and more efficient while consuming less mental power. A young boy named Philip appears from the shadows. He recognizes Ray as the hunter and seems to have been watching him for quite some time. Philip insists he is not a fighter and proves it by showing his scrawny frame. He has an offer that Ray might find impossible to refuse. Philip leads the mysterious hunter deep into the eastern garbage dump to reveal his secret operation. Ray remembers how he earned his bloody reputation by ruthlessly crushing anyone who stood in his way. They arrive at the massive Philip Hotel, where over 100 children work to survive in the slums. The truth is dark because adults keep dying in the mines, leaving only children to run the shops and streets. Philip reveals he is a professional broker who manages the workforce and keeps the peace through bribes. Ray turns the tables by reading Philip's secret notebook, which contains a terrifying amount of research on him. Driven by profit, Philip makes a shocking proposal to Ray to become his official business partner. The mission is clear. Ray must take down the powerful leader Kedrick to claim total control over the territory. Philip shows off his observation skills by pointing out Ray's specific combat habits, like always leading with his right foot. For the first time, Ray feels understood. Philip sees him as a calculated warrior rather than just a scary monster. The deal is sealed. Ray will fight for the top spot if Philip uses his network to find a mysterious item. 2 days have passed, and Ray finds himself in a dusty scrapyard, getting his vehicle repaired by one of Philip's most trusted men. The mechanic Jax can't stop talking about how much Philip likes Ray, noting that he rarely sends his top talent for simple repairs. When Jax asks for a tool, Ray doesn't even move. He uses his invisible mana to lift a wrench and several bolts right into the air. The job is finished in record time, with Jax even throwing in a high-quality coolant he secretly swiped from his shop. Ray realizes that Philip is much more than a simple information broker. He is a savior to the people of the streets. Before leaving Jack's hands over a sealed envelope containing the information Ray requested regarding potential mages in the area. Back in his car, Ray carefully reviews the list of suspects provided by Philip. Most of them are just locals with slightly odd habits. His eyes narrow as he finds a profile worth investigating. A mysterious man who displays physical feats that defy logic. The report describes an incident where a massive pipe fell from a construction site and the man dodged it with supernatural precision. The suspect didn't look surprised or scared. He simply moved with a grace that only a trained mage could possess. While searching for the suspect, Ray witnesses a group of thugs harassing the owner of the local bookstore. Leo and his crew are being paid double to force the shop into a sale by throwing rocks and breaking windows every single day. Veronica screams from the second-floor window for them to leave. She has reached her breaking point with these bullies. Ray watches closely and sees the flickering light of her mana. Even though she acts brave, her spirit is clouded with deep fear. Disgusted by her defiance, Leo aims a large stone directly at her face and throws it with all his strength. But the stone never hits. Ray intervenes with a sudden burst of mana that sends the projectile flying harmlessly into the street. Ray steps out from the shadows with a cold gaze. These thugs have no idea they just picked a fight with the ghost of 17th Street. A group of low-level thugs is cornering a girl in an alley, but they have no idea they are being watched. Ray stands in the shadows with his icy blue eyes fixed on the unfolding conflict. The cowards start throwing heavy stones at the girl. She braces for impact as the rocks fly through the air, and it looks like there is no escape. Just before the stones can hit, Ray steps in and unleashes a massive wave of wind magic. His mana flares with a brilliant blue glow as he effortlessly deflects every single projectile. One of the thugs is sent flying backward as the magical gale hits him square in the face. He screams in terror as he realizes he has messed with the wrong mage. Karma hits hard as the stone bounces back and slams into the bully. He is left howling in pain while Ray stands perfectly calm amidst the chaos. Veronica is stunned by the sudden rescue. She stares at Ray in disbelief as she realizes the boy she misjudged just saved her life. After the fight is over, Veronica bows deeply to show her thanks. She invites Ray into her shop to escape the cold streets and find a moment of peace. Inside the cozy bookstore, Veronica offers a sincere apology for her past rudeness. She admits she thought Ray was just another street rat looking for trouble. Veronica notices a small cut on Ray's cheek and reaches out to help. She uses a gentle light to heal the wound, and the sight of her power leaves Ray completely mesmerized. Ray is shocked because he can actually see the white mana flowing from her hands. He knows this pure energy only responds to someone with a truly compassionate and dedicated heart. Ray realizes that even skilled mages cannot see the color of the mana they use. This revelation makes him realize his own perception of magic is far beyond anyone else's. As he waits, Ray looks at the expensive books with longing. He hesitates to touch them because his hands are covered in street grime, and he does not want to damage something so valuable. Ray finds a mysterious journal hidden among the shelves. His heart skips a beat when he sees it contains research about the expansion of the deadly black rain. Veronica is searching the shop for her mysterious visitor, but screams in terror when Ray suddenly manifests right behind her. Ray decides to leave for the day, but he makes his intentions clear. He is hunting for the legendary prism. While eating at a nearby restaurant, a cheerful waiter named Joni brings Ray extra food on the house as a thank you. Ray uses the opportunity to gather intel on a mysterious man across the street who follows a perfect clockwork schedule. The target finally steps out, and Ray immediately notices the same magical rings worn by the high-ranking mages he has fought before. Ray reaches the target's home and finds the door locked, but his innate mana begins to move on its own to unlock it. Once inside, Ray discovers a discarded letter that mentions a horrifying requirement of 66 orphans for a dark ritual. He also finds a stash of red bloodstones, which are the exact same jewels that powered up the gang leader Kedrick's ring. Ray experiments with a stone and creates a massive pillar of flame, but the owner of the house suddenly returns early. Ray dives under the bed to hide, but the mage Walter smiles a wicked grin as he realizes there is a rat in his room. Just as Ray explores the abandoned building, a hidden predator lunges from the shadows. Walter believes he has found an easy target, but he is about to face the ghost of 17th Street. Ray dodges with inhuman reflexes and strikes back with lethal precision. The cold determination in his eyes proves that age is just a number in a fight for survival. Blood enters Walter's eye as he realizes this is no ordinary kid. He is terrified to find an assassin so young and so capable within his territory. Walter tries to regain control, but Ray pins him down with ease. The veteran killer is shocked by the pure physical power coming from such a small frame. Desperate to escape, Walter activates his unique magic called metallization. By focusing mana into his skin, he turns his body as hard as steel to deflect the blade. Ray watches the flow of mana and does the impossible. He memorizes the color combination and replicates the magic perfectly right before Walter's eyes. Walter is paralyzed with fear because metallization was his own secret invention. Ray turns the mage's own power against him with terrifying efficiency. The copy mage strikes, and Walter screams in agony. Ray demands answers from the defeated man, but the fight is far from over. Walter loses his mind and ignites his mana into a massive pillar of fire. He decides to burn everything to the ground rather than surrender to a child. The air burns as Walter, the Blood Eye, reveals his true form. He is a walking inferno driven by madness and the pain of being abandoned by his boss. Ray uses his own mana to shield himself from the heat. He realizes that a standard defense will not work, and he must push his limits to win. In a display of absolute mastery, Ray manipulates two different magic types at the same time. Water bubbles appear in the air as he prepares to extinguish the flame. A massive tidal wave of water mana erupts and drowns the inferno. The steam clears to reveal a defeated Walter who never stood a chance against such talent. Ray suffers a nosebleed from the intense strain of the battle. He knows he must get even stronger if he wants to face the true masterminds behind the scenes. He looks at the single bloodstone he managed to retrieve and regrets his hesitation. Ray is now on a path of revenge that will shake the foundations of the organization. Next morning arrives as Ray heads to the bookstore. He changed his clothes to avoid being recognized by the man from the previous night. Veronica greets him with high energy. She is excited to see the boy who saved her and her grandfather's shop. Ray remains cold as always. He explains that he ditched his raincoat to stay under the radar because his analytical mind never stops working. He remembers the boss of the rival street. Even in the dark, his face was memorable, and Ray cannot risk being recognized by his attire. As they walk through the house, Ray notices two small heads peeking from behind a door. These are Molta and Julfine. They are orphans Graham took in to teach them the ways of magic. They arrive at the room where the legendary mage awaits. Veronica is eager to finally introduce her hero to her grandfather. Behold Grandpa Graham. Even while bedridden, his aura is immense. He recognizes Ray immediately as the mysterious boy who helped them. Graham offers his sincere gratitude. He explains he wanted to help more, but his body has seen better days, and he is no longer in the best condition. Ray looks at Graham with his special vision and sees something incredible. The old man has 4 distinct rings of emotion swirling within him. Colors representing anger, comfort, excitement, and sorrow are all engraved in his mana vessel. It is a rare and complex sight that is hard to read. Graham challenges Ray to a game. The rules are simple. The winner of each round can ask the loser a single question. Ray does not just feel the mana between them. He can see it. A swirling orb of complex elements appears as the atmosphere completely changes. Ray shocks the old master by identifying 2 distinct tones of gray within the maintenance element. This is genius-level perception that few mages ever achieve. Graham bursts into laughter. He realizes he has found a true talent. A prodigy that comes once in a lifetime has appeared right in front of him. The game begins. They both reach out with their mana to pull the sphere. Ray exerts everything he has to win the first round, but Graham is too fast. With a subtle flick of his immense power, the sphere lands safely in his hand, and he claims victory. Graham wins the first round. His first question is deep. He wants to know exactly who Ray learned his magic from. Ray's answer leaves the old mage stunned. He is entirely self-taught. To reach this level of mastery alone is practically unheard of in this world. Ray stares down his opponent as he clinches another victory in their high-stakes game of mana control. Even with the legendary Graham teaching him, he realizes that pure power matters less than the ability to mold mana itself. But Ray decides to switch up his tactics, catching the old master completely off guard with a sudden burst of interference. Impressed by the boy's ruthlessness, Graham grants him the right to ask any question, leading Ray to seek the truth about mana. The master explains that mana is the core of all existence, an invisible force that only reveals itself through the elements. Graham drops a bombshell that mana only responds to those who are honest with themselves, leaving Ray in deep thought. Ray immediately proves his genius by mastering the complex element of maintenance in real time, which sends Graham into a state of shock. They dive deeper into the mystery of mana rings and the terrifying risk of mana poisoning that drives most mages insane. Ray suddenly connects the dots, realizing his lack of human emotion is actually a superpower that makes him immune to the madness. If someone could wield the infinite mana in the air without losing their mind, they would become an unstoppable force in this world. When asked about his dream, Ray reveals a dark path of vengeance and salvation, vowing to kill those who took everything and save who remains. Seeing a potential like never before, Graham offers to take Ray as his personal disciple and train him in the ways of magic. The lesson turns to the legend of the rainbow, a mythical power that can transform a mere human into a god-like entity. Suddenly, a violent explosion shatters the peace as Ray moves with lightning speed to shield Veronica from the lethal debris. With his silver hair glowing and eyes fixed on the threat, our hero prepares for a battle that will change everything. Ray moves with impossible speed, shielding Veronica from a falling slab of stone as glass shatters around them. Veronica is frozen in shock. She realizes Ray didn't just move. He used high-level wind magic to deflect the debris. Ray remembers the warning he gave. He already broke one of their arms, but it seems the Hector group is doubling down on their harassment. Graham commands Veronica to use her healing arts. Ray's arm is mangled and bleeding from the rescue. Ray watches her cry without understanding the emotion. To him, a scar is just a mark of honor from a past battle. Graham warns her to be careful. Drawing mana from the air without a magic circle is a dangerous path that could drain her life. 6 months ago, the bookstore was a beacon of hope, a place Graham built to train his disciples and finish his lifelong research. Veronica was there from the start, celebrating the opening with flowers and the joy of a new family. But the dream is turning into a nightmare. Graham admits he can no longer protect them due to his failing health. Veronica screams in protest. She refuses to let him sell the shop where his soul and dreams reside. She collapses in tears. The thought of losing their home and her grandfather is more than she can bear. The truth is revealed. Graham suffers from eternal sleep disease, a rare condition where his sleeping periods will grow until he never wakes again. Ray prepares to leave. Veronica tries to hide her heartbreak, asking him to return only when the old man is awake. Ray cannot feel the weight of her sadness, but he offers the only comfort he knows, telling her that everything will go well. Walking into the heavy rain, Ray sets his sights on the 8th Street, the territory of the Jeffer gang. The streets are crawling with thugs. Ray realizes the bookstore children were likely escapees from this hellish district. He needs information. He heads to find Philip, hoping the informant can lead him to the heart of the gang. Ray finds a series of shipping containers. He spots members of the Kedrick gang guarding the perimeter. A brutal interrogation is happening inside. Kedrick is taking out his rage on someone who dared to cross him. The door is kicked open with a thunderous crash. Ray stands in the doorway, soaking wet and radiating cold intent. Kedrick looks up, half annoyed and half surprised that the ghost of 17th Street would track him to this hideout. But the sight is horrifying. Philip is slumped against the wall, beaten to the brink of death for the secrets he held. Ray finds Philip battered and broken on the floor. Kedrick stands over them with a wicked grin, asking if Ray has business with the boy too. Ray looks at his fallen friend. Philip helped him when he had nothing. Now it is time for the ghost of 17th Street to pay his debt. Ray stands between the predator and his prey. He always repays his debts. That is his only rule. Kedrick is losing his patience. He knows their duel is tomorrow, but he wants to crush Ray right now. Ray senses a change in the air. Kedrick's mana is overflowing. The power from his cursed ring has grown far more distinct than before. Ray demands to know why Philip was targeted. Kedrick only laughs. He claims Philip is a parasite who leeches off the strong. Kedrick charges with murderous intent. Just the sight of the weak makes him sick to his stomach. Ray reacts with lightning speed. He grabs Kedrick's arm and tosses the arrogant leader aside like trash. Kedrick strikes back with a mana-infused fist. The impact shakes the room, but Ray holds his ground without breaking a sweat. Ray stares down his opponent. He tells Kedrick to leave. This is between him and the boy, but he wants to know the truth behind this cruelty. Kedrick is consumed by rage. He screams that he despises the weak. Their very existence makes him want to throw up. The madman smashes the wall to pieces. He warns Ray to back off, or he will be the next one broken on the floor. Kedrick vows to make a bloody example of anyone who dares to intrude on his territory. Ray considers using his hidden trump card, but the side effects are too risky. He needs a different strategy to save Philip. Ray plays on Kedrick's ego. He claims there is a far more effective way to make an example of a traitor. Ray suggests a public execution. Killing him in the dark is a waste. He should do it in front of a real audience. Kedrick imagines the glory of a public slaughter. The idea of everyone watching him dominate fills him with sick joy. Ray tells him to wait until the day of their duel. All the strongest mages in the sector will be there to witness his power. Kedrick is worried his prize will escape. Ray promises to take full responsibility for the prisoner. The deal is struck. Kedrick trusts that a man like Ray won't go back on his word. As he leaves, Kedrick delivers a chilling warning. If Philip disappears, Ray will be the one to suffer in his place. Ray rushes to Philip's side. The boy is in a much worse state than he thought. Every second counts. Ray carries his friend through the pouring rain. He reaches the hotel and finds Jonathan, who is horrified by the sight of his bloody friends. Ray is at his limit. He collapses with Philip in his arms and begs for help. The cold ghost finally shows a glimmer of desperation. Philip finally opens his eyes after the brutal attack by Kedrick and finds Ray waiting for answers. Ray demands to know why Philip was targeted by the very man he used to call his friend. Philip explains they were once weaklings together on the streets, just trying to find a stable footing. But Kedrick was never content with a simple life and began obsessively training his body to escape the shadows. Everything changed recently when Kedrick suddenly gained monstrous strength and left the hotel behind. Ray realizes that Kedrick likely met the mysterious man in the gray trench coat while wandering the streets. This man gave Kedrick a cursed ring that fueled his violence and turned him into a cold-blooded leader. Ray sees a pink aura of sadness and grief radiating from Philip as he speaks of his lost companion. Ray offers to let Philip talk to Kedrick one last time, but it requires entering enemy territory. To reach the battlefield, They must pass through the lands controlled by the three great gangs. But Ray has a terrifying condition. If he loses, the fight Philip will be publicly executed by Kedrick. Despite the threat of a painful death, Philip is determined to stand by the side of his savior. Ray does not care about Philip's loyalty. He only wants to place the boy in a permanent debt. Now Ray reveals a second condition that will seal Philip's fate as they prepare for war. Ray approaches Philip with a proposal, so insane it leaves the informant speechless. Philip laughs it off as a joke, but one look at Ray's eyes tells him otherwise. Ray is looking to rake in huge profits, and he needs Philip's help to pull it off. With the three great gangs gathered in one place, the amount of capital involved is astronomical. Even if they win, Philip is terrified of the angry mob that will be left with empty pockets. Ray is not worried about the numbers because to him, 100 enemies are still zero threat. Philip officially signs the contract and declares it an honor to work with President Ray. 2 days later, the southern garbage dump transforms into a brutal arena for the match of a lifetime. A circle of fire ignites, and the crowd goes wild as the hunter prepares to face the boss. Kedrick and Ray stand face to face, and the tension in the air is thick enough to cut with a blade. The spectators are throwing down thousands of shillings, betting everything on Kedrick to win. They are not just here for money, they want to see the arrogant outsider get destroyed. Kedrick loses his temper when Ray ignores his warnings, but Ray is only focused on the plan. Philip makes a grand entrance in his wheelchair, carrying a briefcase that will change everything. Kedrick introduces Philip as his special guest for the entertainment after the battle. Philip interrupts the proceedings to place his own massive bet on the outcome. He drops a staggering 2.4 million shillings, and the entire room falls silent. He is betting every single asset he owns on Ray the mysterious outsider. The crowd descends into a betting frenzy as greed takes over every single spectator. Kedrick welcomes the extra money with a sadistic grin and signals for the bell to ring. Kedrick launches a devastating first strike, aiming to end the fight before it even begins. Ray remains cold and analytical, noting that while Kedrick is fast, his moves are incredibly sloppy. The hunter catches the boss's arm and prepares to break it with a single calculated move. Kedrick laughs like a maniac, realizing he has finally found someone worth fighting. The boss unleashes his full killing intent as the flames roar, and the real battle begins. The arena is on fire as the ghost of 17th Street faces off against the ambitious gang leader Kedrick in a fight to the death. Kedrick screams in fury as he lunges forward, but Ray is already several steps ahead of him. Ray grabs the hot-headed leader in a tight hold, but Kedrick refuses to stay down. With a sudden burst of power, Ray sends his opponent flying across the ring as the crowd gasps in disbelief. Kedrick ignites with a terrifying red aura and declares that there is no way he can lose to a brat like Ray. As the strikes grow heavier, Ray remembers the words of Niles about overcoming a massive weight difference. Ray executes a perfect joint lock, pinning Kedrick to the ground and demanding his surrender. The leader of the gang is out cold, and the arena falls silent before erupting in anger over lost bets. Humiliated and broken, Kedrick wakes up to find the crowd throwing trash at him while calling him a disgrace. Something inside Kedrick snaps as he sees 1,000 eyes judging his failure. In a final act of madness, he unleashes a wave of fire to burn everyone to ashes while laughing like a demon. Total chaos erupts as a massive inferno consumes the arena, and the crowd panics in a desperate race for survival. Kedrick stares up with a twisted grin, believing he has finally proven his worth even as his body begins to fail him. Ray watches coldly as the ambitious leader collapses to the ground, while the flames close in around them. Ray considers the logical path of leaving the dying boy behind to ensure his own safety, but something stops him. Philip rushes into the heat and refuses to abandon Kedrick, showing a level of loyalty that Ray cannot comprehend. Desperate and struggling, Philip begs Ray for help to move the wheelchair before they are all burned alive. Ray finally moves to assist, but he demands to know why Philip would bother saving someone who almost killed him. He asks what Philip expects to gain from this reckless act of kindness, but the answer is not what he expects. With a bright and innocent smile, Philip simply states that they are friends, and that is all the reason he needs. The word triggers a flood of memories, as Ray recalls all the orphans who treated him like family despite his cold nature. Ray reflects on his inability to feel the same bond, wondering if he ever truly reached out to understand them. The fire has completely surrounded their exit, and Philip begins to lose hope as the heat becomes unbearable. In a stunning display of power, Ray manifests water magic to create wet filters for their masks to block out the smoke. Amidst the roaring flames, Ray asks for a true definition, because his understanding of friendship is still a mystery. Philip explains that a friend is someone who helps without asking for anything in return, and someone you would risk everything for. This profound realization leaves Ray speechless, as he continues to protect his only companion through the fire. Trapped deep inside a collapsing building surrounded by an uncontrollable inferno, Philip asks the question on everyone's mind. Ray, do you regret staying here to die with us? Philip realizes that Ray's cold exterior hides a deeper truth. He was responding to a human desire to protect those he cares about, even if he does not understand the feeling himself. Before they can say another word, the ceiling gives way. Massive steel beams and heavy debris come crashing down to crush the boys into the burning floor. As the shadow of death looms over him, Ray looks back at his past life. He always thought he was ready to die, but this time feels different. He remembers the night he fought the stone golem. Back then, all he cared about was the kill and the debt he owed. He had nothing to live for but his next mission. But looking at the children he has grown to protect, he finally understands the truth. He does not want to pay a debt. He wants to keep living with them. With a newfound will to survive, Ray reaches out his hand. Pure white mana begins to swirl around him as he taps into a power he has never used before. A massive prismatic shield erupts from his palm, shattering the falling debris and pushing back the wall of fire. It is a miracle born from the desire to protect. Ray turns to Philip, who is trembling in his wheelchair. He tells the boy not to move as he prepares to test the limits of his new healing magic. Blinding white light wraps around Philip's shattered leg. The boy gasps as the pain vanishes, and his broken bones begin to knit back together instantly. Outside the factory is a total loss. The orphans stand in the street watching their only home vanish into a mountain of ash and smoke. The ruthless gang leader Jeffer shows no mercy. He laughs at the suffering children and tells them to figure out their own survival while he abandons them to the night. One boy collapses in the dirt weeping for his lost friends. He believes Philip and Ray are gone, forever buried under the weight of the burning factory. But then a figure emerges from the black smoke. Ray walks out of the ruins without a single burn mark, carrying the hope of the 17th Street orphans with him. The atmosphere turns ice cold as Ray glares at the cowards who were ready to leave them for dead. He issues a simple and terrifying challenge. Just try me. The thugs fall to their knees in terror as the ghost of 17th Street passes by. The legend of the prismatic mage has officially begun, and nobody will stand in his way. The ghost of 17th Street has returned, but he is not alone. Ray marches into the hotel grounds with the defeated Kedrick in tow as the crowd watches in absolute shock. Wait, a familiar face steps out from the shadows. It is Chris. The boy who abandoned his friends is now trembling with regret. Philip shows true leadership by welcoming the traitor back with open arms. He knows that in these streets survival is a cruel game, and he refuses to hold a grudge. But there is no time for tears. Ray carries the broken body of the former boss through the hotel lobby like a trophy of his absolute dominance. They count the spoils of war. Over 4 million shillings sit on the table. Ray requests a new base since his old home was reduced to ashes during the chaos. Philip refuses to take his full share of the winnings. He is playing a long game by investing in Ray to ensure the hotel remains the safest place in the sector. The peace is shattered when rival gangs arrive. Jeffer and Lotson have come to claim the betting money with a small army of thugs behind them. Ray stares down the massive gang leaders with total indifference. He agrees to give them their earnings, but flips a single coin into the dirt as an insult. The message is clear. Ray has just declared war on the 2 strongest gangs in the city. The real battle for 17th Street starts now. Ray stares down Jeffer with cold indifference, telling the thugs that if they want the money, they must take it by force. The massive boss, Jeffer, loses his temper and orders his men to swarm the boy immediately. Despite being exhausted, Ray taps into the power of his mysterious red ring to ignite his remaining strength. He becomes a blur of motion, delivering bone-shattering strikes to anyone foolish enough to get close. The street becomes a war zone as Ray tears through the ranks of the gang with supernatural speed. More thugs rush in, hoping to overwhelm the young hunter with their massive numbers. Ray ignores the pain and continues his dance of destruction, clearing the path with absolute precision. Kedrick's subordinates watch the spectacle in total shock, realizing their own leader is nothing compared to this boy. Ray is coughing up blood from the extreme physical strain, but he refuses to let the orphans behind him get hurt. Suddenly, the tide turns as Kedrick's men decide to betray their old ways and follow the hunter into battle. They form a human wall to protect the hotel entrance, declaring Ray as their new leader to the surrounding gangs. The rival gangs bring out a massive battering ram, determined to break through the defense. Ray appears out of nowhere and stops the heavy metal pipe dead in its tracks with his bare hands. With one final burst of power, Ray swings the entire ram like a toy, sending the attackers flying in every direction. The sheer terror is too much for the remaining thugs who flee into the shadows to escape the legendary hunter. As the dust settles, the crowd erupts into cheers for their protector, calling out Ray's name in a massive wave of sound. Ray's body finally hits its limit, and he falls to the ground while seeing the strange golden glow of gratitude for the first time. Philip and the others rush to his side, as the hero of 17th Street finally finds a moment of rest. Ray finds himself wandering through a colorless void, wondering where he is, and if this is all just a dream. He rarely dreams, but this strange place feels different than anything he has experienced before. Suddenly, a brilliant white light pierces through the monochromatic world, pulling him toward it with an odd sense of certainty. As his hand touches the source, the white void shatters into a prismatic explosion of color. The vibrant mana flows into his eyes, revealing a power he never knew existed. Ray jolts awake in the infirmary of the Philip Hotel, realizing he has been out for an entire day. Before he can process the dream, his new subordinates burst in, treating him like a legendary hero and offering him food. Ray observes the street from the balcony, seeing Kedrick gang members working hard to reorganize under Philip's leadership. As he watches them work, Ray senses a heavy feeling of guilt radiating from one of the boys nearby. The moment he steps out, the children of the street surround him with praise and strange questions about his shoe size. But the peaceful moment is shattered when Chris charges at him with a surgical scalpel and a face full of rage. Ray does not even flinch as the blade approaches his face, staring back with cold, calculating eyes. He effortlessly grabs the boy and places the blade against his own throat, mocking the lack of conviction behind the attack. Ray's eyes glow with a menacing red aura as he realizes the boy has no actual intent to kill. Instead of striking back, Ray demands that the boy follow him because they have a lot to talk about. Philip is riddled with guilt for leaving blades in the infirmary, but Ray stays cool as ice. The real tension is with Kedrick, who is spiraling into a dark pit of despair after his humiliating defeat. Kedrick snaps and screams that he wanted to die because losing means he is weak. When Philip tries to comfort him, Kedrick explodes in a fit of rage and slams his hand down in a violent outburst. As Kedrick shouts, his mana begins to drain at a terrifying rate. Veronica explains the danger of charge stones, which can cause a lethal mana addiction if the user cannot refine the energy properly. Kedrick is in total agony, asking why they even bothered to save his life. Philip shocks him to the core by calling him a friend, despite everything Kedrick did to destroy his hotel. The walls around Kedrick's heart finally crumble, and he breaks down in tears. Ray watches with a cold stare, noting that the once proud gang leader was actually just a crybaby the whole time. We see Kedrick's past, where he was a victim of the streets who hated his own weakness. He met a mysterious man in a fedora who offered him a magic ring that promised to grant him true power. Back in the present, Ray drops a bombshell. The ring did not cure anything. It was a deception using mana to artificially boost his body, and Kedrick realizes all his strength was a total lie. Despair takes over as Kedrick realizes he might return to being the pathetic person he once was. But Ray stops him and explains that there is no need to go back to that life. Ray clenches his fist with an intense blue glow in his eyes. He tells Kedrick to follow his orders exactly because he will stand to gain far more power than he ever had before. Ray is preparing to leave the territory, but he has one final plan for the gang and his former rival Kedrick. Philip explains that, while fear is a powerful tool, true loyalty is only earned through appropriate rewards. To everyone's shock, Ray returns all the betting money from the duel, instantly making the street orphans view him as a savior. But the kindness ends there, as Ray turns his cold gaze toward the captured bosses Jeffer and Lotson. Under the pressure of a brutal interrogation, Jeffer reveals that a man named Fred ordered the hit on the bookstore. The real Ray emerges as he delivers a bloody beatdown that leaves the entire gang trembling in pure terror. He issues a chilling ultimatum, promising to hunt down and kill anyone who dares to harm his people again. As the children celebrate their safety, Ray retreats to the roof to question if someone like him can ever truly understand friendship. Philip brings him a warm cup of cocoa, and for a brief moment the cold emptiness in Ray's heart begins to fade. Ray navigates the quiet streets, heading toward a destination that has become a sanctuary for him. He arrives at the Veronica bookstore, where the usual peace of the library is about to be shattered by his presence. Veronica rushes out to meet him, her eyes wide with worry, after he went missing for several days. She immediately notices the fresh bruises on his face and realizes he has been through a brutal struggle. Driven by instinct, she begins to channel her mana to heal him despite the physical toll it takes on her young body. Ray watches the glowing light, realizing his new ability to feel concern allows him to see things he was blind to before. In a rare moment of curiosity, Ray asks her if she considers him a friend. Veronica overcomes her shock and gives him a radiant smile, confirming that he is indeed her friend. But the boy, cold as ice flatly, rejects her, leaving the poor girl completely stunned and speechless. Ray moves past the fuming girl and enters the chamber of the legendary mage Graham, who has been waiting for him. Graham reveals the grim reality that he has less than half a year to live and wants to pass on his knowledge. Before the lessons begin, Ray presents the magical ring he took from the street gang to get an expert opinion. Graham takes one look at the artifact and identifies a sinister exploitation-type magic hidden within its structure. He warns Ray that this item is designed to consume the user's own vitality, just to repair its own energy. When Ray mentions the name Merc Red, the old mage reveals they are the most dangerous organization in the underworld. They deal in weapons and human trafficking, but what makes them truly terrifying is that every single member is a mage. Their symbol is a crimson gem, and they carry charged stones as a sign of their absolute disregard for mana addiction. The tension peaks as Graham drops a bombshell. Merc Red possesses a piece of the legendary rainbow Ray has been searching for. Graham reveals a legendary secret about the true nature of the rainbow. He warns that the dangerous group Merc Red is hunting for its hidden power. The rainbow was once a single gem that radiated infinite energy to the world. Long ago, the world was a bountiful paradise, thanks to this holy light. But human greed eventually triggered a catastrophic war for control of the gem. The intense conflict shattered the rainbow into 7 fragments scattered across the lands. Ray suspects the man in the basement is an executive for the organization Merc Red. Veronica enters the room as Graham begins to teach Ray the secrets of magic. Graham explains that forming a circle is necessary to prevent mana addiction. Veronica demonstrates the method by gathering mana and cycling it through her heart. She feels deep frustration after failing to complete a perfect circle for Ray to see. Ray takes his turn and draws in a massive amount of familiar mana. The pressure becomes unbearable, and it feels like his body will be torn apart. Against all odds, Ray compresses the energy to form a perfect core in his heart. Absolute insanity. Ray has just created his first mana circle on the very first try. Veronica is losing her mind. She has never seen anyone with this much raw talent before. Even the legendary mage Graham is stunned. It took him 3 months to do what this kid did in seconds. But there is a terrifying secret inside Ray. His circle contains every single type of mana that exists in the world. Graham warns him to hide his power. In this harsh world, being a mage makes you a target. The old master decides to test the boy. He conjures a complex stone shape using advanced magic formulas. Veronica thinks it is impossible. Beginners should not even be able to touch this level of sorcery. But Ray does not just copy it. He creates a perfect replica without a single moment of hesitation. He creates houses. He creates roses. He even creates perfect statues out of thin air. Graham is speechless. This goes far beyond genius. This is something else entirely. Later, Ray asks Veronica a question that has haunted him. Why does she not hate him for his talent? He remembers the dark faces of the past, people who looked at him with nothing but pure loathing. But Veronica just smiles. She says she is envious, but she could never be jealous of a friend. Ray thinks back to the only kindness he ever knew. A boy named Theo who shared food when he was starving. Maybe there is more to this world than just survival. Ray asks Veronica to teach him how to read. She is more than ready. She is going to be the best teacher Ray has ever had. Ray prepares himself for the cost. He expects she will ask him to eliminate a rival gang. But her demand is much simpler. Go take a bath because you are filthy. Veronica is caught off guard as Ray walks out of the shower looking like a total heartthrob. She is completely frozen by his appearance as he asks where to leave his towel. The cold protagonist reveals his next objective. To continue his journey up the Elton River, he needs to gain knowledge that can only be found in books. Ray drops a chilling hint that the thugs harassing the store are gone for good. Veronica is terrified and asks if he ended their lives but Ray simply says he would not kill someone over throwing stones. Veronica is ready to be a strict teacher, but she is not prepared for a genius. Ray asks how long it took her to learn, and her eyes nearly pop out when she realizes he is on another level. Class is in session, and Ray is a monster. He finishes the entire test in under a minute with only one mistake. Veronica realizes she is teaching a literal prodigy. The lesson ends with a strange request. Ray asks Veronica to watch over him while he makes a circle. She gets flustered, but agrees, not realizing Ray just wants to pay back his debt. Using the power of his magic ring, Ray begins to levitate massive stacks of books with ease. He is searching for a specific word, but the dictionary does not have what he is looking for. Ray dives deep into the secrets of mana. He discovers that light pink energy is fueled by pure sadness. He vows never to touch it again because the trauma of his past is too heavy to handle. The truth finally clicks. Ray finds a clue in the books and realizes he has been looking at everything the wrong way. He bolts out of the store with a new destination in mind. The puzzle pieces fall into place as the sinister face of the mysterious man appears in his mind. Ray finally understands that his enemy has a much darker goal than anyone could have imagined. Ray uncovers a horrifying secret. The mysterious group is using children as ritual offerings for their dark magic. The magic ring Kedrick wore was a tool of exploitation. It was designed to drain power to strengthen a mysterious red gem. Ray realizes the mastermind is likely waiting for a report that will never come. The trap is being set. In the middle of his planning, a massive feast arrives. The local orphans pooled their money to buy Ray a hero's meal. Joni explains that the target is 3 hours late. Something is off. The man was seen smiling and mumbling about the time being near. Ray heads toward a hidden basement. He knows he cannot just rush in, or he will lose his only lead on Merc Red. A group of thugs tries to jump Ray in the alley. Briggs swings a massive punch, but he has no idea who he is messing with. Ray catches the fist effortlessly. The sound of cracking bone echoes through the street as the bullies realize they are facing the hunter. Ray decides to use the carrot and stick approach. He needs eyes on the street, and these thugs are the perfect tools. He rewards the thugs with the massive feast he was given. Their loyalty is instantly bought with the smell of expensive food. Back at the basement, Ray finds a new lock. It is protected by high-level magic that will alert the owner if broken. One touch and the protective seal flares with energy. Ray must decide whether to force his way in or wait for the target. Suddenly, the target walks right past him. Ray holds his breath. It was dark in the basement before, so the man might not recognize his face. The mysterious benefactor stares Ray down with cold and scarred eyes. The tension is thick enough to cut with a blade. The next day, Ray joins Kedrick to meet the boss. The man arrives draped in shadows and an aura of pure malice. The boss stops Kedrick mid-report. He demands to know who the stranger standing behind him is. The mysterious benefactor leans in close. He wants a name, and he wants it now. Ray stares back with eyes of ice. He claims the name of the man who owns these streets. "My name is Niles." Ray maintains his cover by introducing himself as Niles to the mysterious visitor. The man in the trench coat lets out a cold smirk, as if he knows more than he lets on. The group walks through the abandoned factory while discussing their growing numbers. The mysterious benefactor bursts into a terrifying laugh that echoes through the halls. Kedrick is completely fooled by the promise of joining a powerful organization. Ray analyzes the situation and realizes the man is lying through his teeth. The benefactor claims they travel constantly to carry out their secret missions. Ray detects the man mana quivering, which is a clear sign of deception. When asked about the boss, the benefactor expression turns into one of pure dread. He describes a presence so powerful that even he cannot dare to look at him. An overwhelming sense of fear fills the room as the shadow of the true master looms. As the man leaves, he drags a streak of red mana across the railing. The entire floor of the factory has been transformed into a massive magic circle. The benefactor reveals glowing red gems that pulse with a dark and sinister energy. A violent pillar of red light erupts as the magic array is fully activated. He warns Kedrick to protect the ring, as if his very life depends on it. Once the man finally leaves, Kedrick collapses from the sheer pressure of the encounter. Ray stands over the glowing circle alone and prepares to investigate the source of this magic. He decides to seek out an expert who can explain the true nature of these mysterious gems. Legendary mage Graham looks at the notebook in total disbelief. He realizes the design Ray drew is linked to the dangerous executive of Merc Red. He reveals that this is not just a sketch, but a perfect magic circle. It is a high-level technique that can amplify a spell's power to terrifying heights. Graham is stunned because drawing this requires seeing the fine threads of mana using only a sense of touch. Ray has achieved the impossible without any formal training. This is exploitation magic. It is the exact same dark power found on the ring that Ray took from his fallen enemies. The truth is horrifying. Once this circle activates, every living being in the area will die as their life force is converted into pure magic power. Ray pieces the puzzle together. The mysterious man in the trench coat intends to sacrifice Kedrick's entire gang to fuel this ritual. 3 days later, on the promised day, Ray arrives at the warehouse to meet the sinister Walter. The villain is confident his plan is in motion. Walter steps inside but stops in his tracks. The warehouse is completely empty. Before he can react, Ray ambushes him from the shadows with a blade. The air explodes with heat as Ray unleashes a massive blast of fire magic. Walter screams in shock as he realizes the boy he looked down on is a powerful mage. Ray stands over his prey with cold eyes. He reveals that he has come under orders to dispose of the monster once and for all. Ray stands his ground as a powerful fire mage corners him in the darkness. The enemy laughs while explaining that a massive magic circle is already set to activate very soon. Flames erupt as the villain transforms into a monstrous being of pure heat and destruction. Philip and his friends watch the battle from a safe distance while praying for their hero to survive. Ray moves with blinding speed as he clashes blades against the relentless fire of his opponent. Veronica claims to have total faith in Ray, but her trembling hands tell a different story. A giant serpent of fire lunges from the circle to end the battle in one swift move. The hunter demands surrender, but he has no idea who he is actually fighting. Ray shocks his opponent by revealing he can wield more than just one element at a time. Desperate to survive, the hunter hardens his skin with magic to block the lethal blow. The fiery snake opens its massive jaws to swallow the young protagonist whole. Ray realizes that the hunter cannot move, while he is focusing on controlling the fire snake. The villain thinks Ray is trying to trick the beast into attacking its master. Everything changes when Ray activates a giant water magic circle he learned from Veronica. A tidal wave of blue energy crashes into the flames to extinguish the hunter power. The hunter screams in terror as he realizes Ray power is far beyond Circle 1. Silence falls over the area as Ray stands victorious over his fallen enemy. Ray stands over the fallen Walter like a judge from the depths of hell. The battle is over, but the danger is only beginning. Ray looks at his watch with cold precision. He only has 10 minutes left before the situation spirals out of control. Walter tries to crawl toward the exit, but Ray is already there. He tells the villain to stop because there is no escape today. Ray holds the magical ring in his hand and issues a final ultimatum. One more step, and he destroys the only thing Walter cares about. Ray explains that every bloodstone has a weakness. With the right elements, even the strongest gems will shatter like glass. Walter loses his mind and screams that he will tear Ray limb from limb. The monster is finally showing his true face. The clash begins as Walter unleashes a wave of pure destructive energy. Ray moves like a ghost to evade the killing blow. In a split second, Ray strikes the ring with a needle. The precious gem cracks and Walter gasps in absolute horror. Suddenly, a massive magic circle ignites beneath them. Walter thinks he has time, but Ray reveals he tampered with the trap long ago. The magic circle erupts into a pillar of white-hot flames. Walter is vaporized in an instant as his own trap becomes his grave. Ray retrieves the ring from the ashes, but the energy is too much to handle. Red mana starts to swirl around him like a hungry predator. Back at the hideout, Veronica senses a shift in the air. The mana is going berserk, and the pressure is enough to crush a normal person. Ray arrives, but he is not the boy they know. He is engulfed in a roaring inferno of mana poisoning that threatens to consume everything. Ray has lost control, and he lashes out at his friends. The boy without emotions is now a living weapon of mass destruction. Veronica stands her ground against the blistering heat. She refuses to run even as Ray prepares a blast that could level the entire block. As the fire closes in, Veronica smiles with tears in her eyes. All she wants is for Ray to be safe, even if it costs her everything. Immediately after the brutal fight with Walter, Ray discovers something chilling hidden within the red ring. The mana is growing at an extraordinary rate, and it is showing him something he did not expect. He is pulled into a tragic memory of a man who lost everything. The man weeps over a theft he did not commit as his world burns around him, while Ray watches the memory unfold in horror. Suddenly, a voice of pure malice echoes in the boy's mind. It demands he surrender to the rage and raze the entire world to the ground. Kill them all is the only command as a massive fire deity manifests behind him. A massive explosion of fire threatens to consume everything until a white sun appears in the sky. Veronica uses her last bit of strength to stop the carnage and save Ray from losing his humanity. 3 days later, the boy is at the Phillip Hotel caring for the bedridden girl. Veronica used far too much mana and is now paying the price while acting like a pampered princess to make Ray pay his debt. They discuss the dangerous ring, which contains poisonous mana from a human soul. Ray decides to lock it away, because if it were not for Veronica, he likely would have burned to death from the inside. Phillip brings a box of the villain's belongings, and they find a disturbing notebook. It reveals that the Merc Red organization is hunting for 7 fragments of a legendary rainbow scattered across the world. Knowing the path ahead will be dangerous, Ray makes a surprise move. He asks the young informant to leave the sector and travel with him as his very first teammate. Ray drops a massive bombshell on Phillip by asking him to leave the sector forever. Phillip is completely stunned by the unexpected proposal. Ray reminds Phillip that his secret dream has always been to find a better life away from these streets. After a moment of reflection, Phillip makes the life-changing decision to join Ray. He asks for 2 weeks to properly hand over his responsibilities at the hotel. The following days are a blur of intense training and preparations for the journey ahead. Veronica is blown away by the natural talent of Ray, as he masters complex magic with ease. Young orphans Molto and Soren watch the training session with eyes full of wonder. Veronica begins her final test as she attempts to manifest her own mana for the first time. A flashback reveals the harsh but necessary methods Ray used to unlock the hidden potential of Veronica. Veronica pushes herself to the limit, knowing that her grandfather's health is failing fast. The air crackles with energy as she successfully creates a perfect mana circle. Overcome with exhaustion and joy, she falls into the arms of Ray after her breakthrough. She pours out her heart in gratitude to the boy who believed in her when no one else did. With her goal achieved, she races to find Graham and show him her success. She drags Ray toward the study with a heart full of excitement and pride. Veronica bursts into the room, calling out for the attention of her grandfather. Ray stops dead in his tracks as he senses a cold and heavy silence in the air. The sight of the slumped body of Graham confirms their worst fears in a single heartbeat. The joy of her achievement is instantly replaced by a soul-crushing grief. The legendary mage Graham has reached the end of his long journey as his life force begins to fade away. Ray drops a bombshell, revealing he is a hollow shell who cannot feel a single human emotion in his day-to-day life. Graham suspects the boy's heart was closed off by past trauma and tries to teach him one final lesson about understanding people. In a shocking twist, Ray explains that he is completely face-blind and sees everyone around him as the same blurred mess. Time is running out as Ray warns a trembling Veronica that her grandfather is about to pass from this world. Through her grief, Veronica shows Graham that she finally mastered the magic circle he always wanted her to learn. With his final breath, Graham tells the children he is proud of their strength before closing his eyes forever. The heavens weep during a massive funeral as the protector of the street is laid to rest in a grand cemetery. Ray tries to use his late master's advice to analyze the sorrow written across Veronica's features. A sudden wave of unfamiliar sadness crashes over Ray as he realizes he is actually starting to feel something for the first time. Ray pulls her into a tight hug, choosing to comfort her out of his own will and accepting the change in his soul. The time has finally come for Ray and Phillip to leave the slums of 17th Street behind forever. Phillip says his final goodbyes to his friends as they prepare to venture into the dangerous world outside. It is exactly 10 in the morning, and Ray is not a man who waits for anyone. He puts the car into gear, ready to leave without a second thought for those staying behind. Just as they start to move, a flash of red hair appears in the distance. Veronica is sprinting with everything she has got, screaming for them to wait for her. Phillip panicked and wanted to stop the car, but Ray ordered him to keep going. He told Phillip to just leave the door open, as this was Veronica's final test of resolve. As the car picks up speed, Ray reaches out his hand toward the gasping girl. With one final desperate leap, Veronica grabs hold and pulls herself into their new life. 7 hours of non-stop driving later, and the crew is absolutely wrecked. Phillip and Veronica are losing their lunch in the desert after Ray's aggressive driving style. Under the cover of night, Ray reveals his true objective. He is searching for the rainbow, which is a legendary gem split into 7 fragments that can grant any wish. Inspired by Ray's honesty, Philip shares his own dream. He is working to find his mother, who left him years ago to earn money in another sector and never returned. Veronica has a much darker motivation. She needs to complete her grandfather's research on the black rain, which is a deadly disease that turns skin black and causes eternal sleep. Ray admits he finds the idea of a pact meaningless, but he agrees to work with them anyway. They bump fists and swear to count on each other from this moment forward, but the peace is shattered instantly. Massive stone deer monsters with glowing red eyes are suddenly charging toward their car from every direction. An entire herd of these prismatic monsters is closing in fast. The journey has barely begun, and the ghost of 17th Street is already under attack by the wild. A massive dust cloud swallows the horizon as a terrifying herd of rock deer charges straight for the group. These stone-skinned beasts are relentless, and they are heading right for the car. With the herd closing in, Veronica summons every bit of her mana to create a spherical shield around the vehicle. She has to hold the line, or they will all be crushed beneath the stampede. The sound of grinding stone and metal fills the air as the massive beasts slam into the magical barrier with relentless force. The impact is deafening as they struggle to maintain their speed. Realizing they cannot hold out much longer, Ray makes a daring move and steps onto the roof of the speeding car. He spots a strange blue glow among the herd and realizes something is wrong. Disaster strikes as the pressure becomes too much for Veronica to handle. She begins to cough up blood as her mana reserves hit their absolute limit. The shield finally shatters under the weight of the monsters, leaving the group completely exposed to the charging beasts. Ray prepares to unleash his own power to save his friends. Ray activates his metallization ability and covers the entire car in a glowing red aura of reinforcement. He transforms the vehicle into an unbreakable armored tank that plows through the monsters. The group survives the charge, but they find something even more disturbing than the stampede. The fallen rock deer are riddled with massive bullet holes from a weapon they have never seen before. A sinister scavenger emerges from the shadows, mockingly asking if the children are lost in the dangerous wasteland. He eyes them like prey, thinking they are easy targets. Before the man can even finish his sentence, Ray lunges forward with overwhelming speed and slams the bandit's head into the dirt. He has no patience for threats in the middle of a mission. In a cold and ruthless move, Ray hands Philip a combat knife. He gives the boy a terrifying order to slit the bandit's throat the moment he gives the signal. Philip puts on the performance of a lifetime as he holds a blade to the captive scout's throat. Ray gives the signal and the pressure is on. This isn't just a threat. This is a promise. The mercenary leader known as Thorn arrives and tries to play it cool. He thinks he is dealing with common kids, but he is about to find out how wrong he is. Ray does not care for negotiations. He drops a cold command to cut the hostage. In an instant, Philip slices the man's throat just deep enough to prove they mean business. When Thorn tries to use his numbers as leverage, Ray decides to end the debate. He summons massive spheres of fire that light up the dark wasteland. The message is clear. Move and you burn. Seeing the power of a true mage, the mercenaries immediately drop to their knees. They beg for mercy and realize their lives are now in the hands of a boy with cold blue eyes. Thorn explains they were hired by a man named John Greed, a businessman who survived a wasteland crisis because of a legendary rock deer that provided him with water from the sky. Thorn tries to lie about his client's location, but Ray is a human lie detector. Without even moving his hands, Ray uses mana pressure to open a fresh gash on the captain's face. Terrified, Thorn reveals the truth. The client is hiding at the Galot Hotel in Sector 48. He also explains the rock deer were stampeding earlier than ever before. Ray isn't done yet. He demands repair costs for the damage the deer caused to their car. Philip takes charge and successfully robs the bandits of 250,000 shillings. As they prepare to leave, a tiny blue creature lets out a soft cry. It is a baby rock deer that was left behind in the chaos. Veronica's heart melts instantly. Veronica names the little one Fran and begs Ray to let them keep him. She knows the baby won't survive on its own in this harsh world. Ray remembers seeing the mother earlier. He decides the little monster might be useful for finding the herd. He gives the order to bring Fran along on their journey. Veronica is overjoyed to have a new friend. With a pocket full of gold and a magical baby deer in tow, the group heads toward their next destination. A brand new day begins as Ray and his companions step into a completely different world. The towering buildings and bustling streets of the upper sector are a far cry from the ruins they once called home. But the streets are never truly safe. A group of low-level thugs attempts to stop them, demanding a toll for entering their territory. They have no idea who they are messing with. Ray lets out a sliver of his murderous intent, and the thugs instantly crumble. Terrified for their lives, they reveal their leader is a man named Renard. Ray tells them to send their boss to his hotel if they want to survive. Veronica realizes that first impressions are everything in this part of town. She insists they change their appearance to avoid unnecessary conflict and heads straight for the finest tailor in the sector. The transformation is incredible. Ray steps out looking like a high-ranking noble heir. His natural coldness combined with the expensive suit gives him an aura that even Philip finds overwhelming. As they walk through the crowds, the commoners part like the Red Sea. The trio looks so out of place among the lower class that people can only stare in awe and silence. Ray senses the shift in the atmosphere. He sees the purple mana of yearning and envy radiating from everyone around them. It is a strange human emotion he still struggles to fully grasp. Philip explains that it is not just the clothes. Ray possesses an innate pressure that makes him look like a species of human being entirely different from those around him. They arrive at their destination, but a massive security guard blocks the entrance. However, one look at Ray and his group is enough to convince the guard they belong inside. Using his street smarts, Philip manages to talk their way past the receptionist. He cleverly uses the name of their target to find the exact room they need to enter. They knock on the door of room 207 and are met by a stern man who has no time for children. He tries to dismiss them immediately, but the kids stand their ground. Ray activates his mana sensing to scan the room. He counts 4 signatures, including 2 guards hidden past the foyer. He knows exactly where everyone is located. The tension reaches a breaking point as the man threatens to use force. Ray does not hesitate and begins to gather his mana. He is ready to strike down anyone who gets in his way. Suddenly, a voice from the back of the room commands the guard to stop. The man they were looking for finally reveals himself. John Greed welcomes his young guests with a mysterious smile. Meet John Greed, the absolute ruler of the water trade in Sector 40. He represents Colonel Water, a massive business built on the most precious resource in the wasteland. But John was not born into wealth. He was once a nomad, cast out by the sectors and forced to wander the scorching wastelands where every drop of water was worth its weight in gold. His group was dying of thirst. In a final desperate act, John left them behind to find an oasis. He collapsed in the sand, ready to accept his end as the heat consumed him. Just as his heart slowed, a miracle appeared from the darkness, a majestic creature with antlers that glowed like stars. The legendary prismatic deer stood before him. With its magic, the beast transformed the dead wasteland into a hidden paradise. That oasis became the foundation of John's massive empire, and now he has only one final wish. He wants to see that creature one last time before he leaves this world, to express his gratitude for the life it gave him. Ray and his group listen to the old man's heart-wrenching tale. Ray makes a bold decision. "We will help you in your search," he says. The room goes silent as the children offer to complete a task that has stumped thousands of hunters. John is skeptical. He asks who they truly are. Ray does not blink as he claims they are mercenaries. This sends shockwaves through the room. John bursts into laughter. He mocks them for their expensive clothes and clean appearance. Real mercenaries are covered in dirt and carry heavy weapons, not fancy suits. But Ray is done talking. The air begins to hum with static electricity as he focuses his internal mana. John's laughter dies in his throat as the temperature in the room shifts. A blinding flash of lightning erupts from Ray's hand. He asks if this is the kind of weapon they were expecting. The power is raw and terrifying. Skyle is frozen in horror. He realizes Ray is a Circle 2 mage, a title most spend decades to reach. John finally understands. These are not children, they are his only hope. Ray displays his incredible mana with a crackling burst of electricity that leaves the room in total silence. John Greed is immediately sold, but his young assistant Mikhail is practically shaking in his boots from the sheer pressure. The deal is official. Ray and his crew join forces with the wealthy businessman for an epic search operation in the wasteland. Skyle puts on a friendly face and accepts the terms, but his shifty eyes tell a completely different story. Hidden beneath that polite smile is a burning hatred for the brats who previously robbed him at knife point. Ray ignores the tension and splits the team to maximize their efficiency in finding Fran's parents. Suddenly, a local thug and his kid accomplice corner Ray with a fake claim about a stolen wallet. Ray catches a flying coin with blinding speed and decides to turn these small-time crooks into his personal informants. The thugs are speechless when Ray reveals a massive bag filled with 1,000,000 shillings of pure bait. In the dark alleyway, the power dynamic shifts instantly as the thugs realize they are dealing with an absolute monster. Ray lays out his demands. He wants information on the rainbow and the mysterious black rain. He offers a massive reward to the one who brings him the most useful information, and the street thugs are eager to comply. Ray analyzes Veronica's mana, revealing it is the rare sky blue element tied to the power of the wind. To keep his friends safe, Ray marks them with a high-level unity spell that allows them to track each other's locations. As the others head back to their lodgings, Ray lingers in the shadows, sensing a predator lurking nearby. Skyle emerges from the darkness with a sinister grin and a secret proposal for the young silver-haired mage. The two head to a private lounge where Skyle tries to play the generous host with expensive drinks. While Skyle prepares for a serious talk, Ray keeps it cool and simply asks for a glass of juice. Skyle opens the meeting with a bold claim. He calls alcohol a magic potion that turns humans into animals. He introduces himself as the commander of the Skyle Mercenary Company and tries to charm the young mage. Ray shocks the mercenary leader by revealing that he has not even bothered to pick a name for his organization yet. The atmosphere turns ice cold as Ray demands that the company put their hunt for the rock deer on hold. To show he is not joking, Ray unleashes a surge of power that shatters the table between them into 1,000,000 pieces. With a terrifying glare, Ray asks the commander if he has any complaints about the new arrangement. Desperate to appease the powerful boy, Skyle brings out a massive feast at the most renowned restaurant in the sector. Ray decides to conduct a secret experiment by injecting his own mana directly into the mercenary heart. Suddenly, Skyle begins to act strange as the mana takes hold, and his inner desires begin to spiral out of control. The experiment is a success, as the commander's vessel is completely consumed by a golden glow of pure greed. Under the influence of the mana, Skyle starts plotting to rob his employer John Greed of his entire fortune. The mercenary shows off a photo of a blue rock deer that he plans to use as the perfect lure for his trap. With a wicked grin, Skyle admits the photo is fake and will be used as bait to steal everything the old man owns. Commander Skyle has a sinister plan to steal everything from John Greed. He warns Ray that Mikhail is a devoted guardian who will be the biggest wild card. Ray is tempted by a massive reward. He needs a fortune to enter the city of mages. His code is simple: pay back your debts. Good for good and evil for evil. Ray shows off his Black Ignis bank card. He knows John has one just like it. The deal is signed. Ray finally agrees to take on the dangerous mission. The next morning, Philip is trying to play the tough inspector against local thugs. Philip completely loses his cool. He screams that their intelligence is absolute garbage. Ray walks through the streets while contemplating the limits of his powers. He can only boost emotions that already exist. He cannot create them from nothing. Ray senses a presence in the shadows. Someone has been following him for a long time. It is Mikhail. He is shocked that Ray saw through his high-level stealth magic. Ray demonstrates a miracle. He manipulates atmospheric mana without even using a circle. Mikhail is totally mesmerized. His curiosity turns into pure admiration for the young mage. Mikhail believes John Greed is a saint who uses his wealth to save orphans. Ray tells him the cold truth. John is not the man he thinks he is. Mikhail snaps. He summons his mechanical birds and demands that Ray take it all back. Ray stands calm while his opponent demands an apology for his perceived arrogance. A giant mechanical hawk emerges from the cloak as the enemy declares his servants will tear Ray to shreds. Rare manipulation magic allows mages to control beasts and turn them into loyal servants for battle. Ray remains unmoved because he believes he has done nothing wrong in this confrontation. The battle explodes with destructive power as Ray activates strengthening magic to enhance his natural speed. He slams his foot down with enough force to shatter the stone floor into pieces. Ray realizes that domination magic is incredibly useful for controlling the flow of combat. His opponent screams in a blind rage and summons glowing purple chains to bind the entire battlefield. Ray understands why the mercenaries could never win against this foe. The hawks block every path while making it impossible for the enemy to fire back without hitting their own comrades. Ray decides to take a different approach to the fight. Instead of attacking the birds directly, he targets the magic connection itself by striking at the core of the mana source. Ray aims for the purple chains to shatter the bond between the mage and his beasts. The opponent is shocked to see someone attacking the magic itself instead of the physical manifestations. The opponent reaches his mana limit as his connection to the magic starts to crumble. He screams in horror, knowing that if the bond breaks, he will lose his servants and his pride forever. The fight is over as the young mage falls to his knees and admits defeat under Ray's cold gaze. He has completely exhausted his mana pool and has no strength left to continue. Ray and Commander Skyle travel through the wasteland to track the rock deer migration. They discuss how the black rain has turned the world into a barren land where nothing can grow. Back at the base, a servant informs Ray that Representative John Greed wants to meet with him immediately. Ray prepares for his next encounter with the man who controls this entire sector. John Greed welcomes Ray into his massive mansion under the cover of night, where a formal meeting is about to turn into a deadly game of chess. The representative skips the small talk and makes a cold-blooded suggestion that shocks the atmosphere of the room. John Greed views his own subordinates as nothing more than dogs, and he declares that a dog who has outlived its usefulness must be cast out. With a twisted smile, the greedy boss orders Ray to eliminate Commander Skyle, because keeping him alive is now a waste of money. Ray watches the man with his cold, analytical eyes, and realizes that John Greed is just as consumed by materialism as the target himself. John dismisses his assistant Mikhail as a useless and naive brat who would only stand in the way of his ruthless ambitions. John explains his dark worldview and claims that everyone eventually loses their innocence once they face the brutal reality of the world. Ray hits back with a sharp truth and tells the boss that he simply does not have enough money to buy his loyalty. John bursts into a manic laughter and claims that Ray's respect for him as a mage has led to a fatal lack of respect for his power. The representative reveals he poisoned the tea with Tikeashin, and without a regular supply of the antidote, Ray will face certain heart failure. But our protagonist is 10 steps ahead, and he reveals that he knew about the poison all along and was only playing the part of a victim. Ray leaves the mansion and realizes that both Skyle and John are already at each other's throats and trying to use him as their ultimate weapon. Ray finds Mikhail on the balcony, where the terrified assistant immediately begs for forgiveness for his earlier behavior. Instead of seeking revenge, Ray asks the young boy to explain the secrets of domination magic to expand his own power. Mikhail is eager to help and begins explaining how the different sectors are managed by independent administrators. The scene shifts to the desert valley the next day, where a massive herd of rock deer is being cornered by armed mercenaries. Skyle and John stand side by side, while their subordinates frantically search for the legendary creature with the blue body. The tension is thick enough to cut with a blade, as Skyle whispers a dark promise into Ray's ear, and the hunt begins. The stage is set for a deadly mission as Ray and his companions prepare to enter the sector. Ray stares into the distance, his cold heart beginning to waver as he considers the safety of those following him. Deep within the canyon, a massive herd of rock deer gathers, creating a landscape of stone and bone. Veronica holds baby Fran close, trying to soothe the small creature as they head straight into the heart of the hunting grounds. John Greed and Commander Skyle watch their progress with predatory smiles, planning to use the young mage for their own selfish gains. Tensions boil over as the mercenaries begin to harass the peaceful creatures, unaware of the sleeping power they are about to wake. The search finally ends when the legendary blue rock deer appears, its glowing hide sparking a fever of pure greed among the men. Ray gives the word to start the operation, his voice carrying an icy weight that signals the end of the piece. The first shot fired is a shocking betrayal, as John Greed guns down his own commander to secure the prize for himself. All hell breaks loose as the mercenaries return fire, turning the quiet canyon into a chaotic battlefield of smoke and lead. But the humans are not the only threat, as the rock deer transform into bloodthirsty monsters and begin their counterattack. Mikhail desperately tries to pull the wounded representative to safety, but the path forward is blocked by a wall of angry beasts. Amidst the slaughter, Ray remains untouched, standing behind an impenetrable magical barrier while the world burns around him. With cold eyes, Ray tells Mikhail that this entire disaster is the direct result of the greed and betrayal of the man on his back. Ray drops a massive bombshell on the battlefield, He tells Mikhail that half the responsibility for this chaos lies with the man on his back. Mikhail is shaken to his core. The words cut deeper than any blade as the truth begins to unravel around him. A memory from the distant past surfaces. Mikhail was once just another desperate orphan struggling to survive in the dark alleys. A brutal bully was about to crush him for daring to take what was not his. Mikhail was defenseless and terrified, but then a hand reached out. John Greed stepped in and saved him. That day a bond of loyalty was forged in the dirt of the streets. Mikhail was not a common thief. He only stole to provide for his little brother Rail, who was dying of a terrible plague. The black rain was a curse on the poor. Once the black spots appeared on the skin, it was already too late. The disease was merciless. It would turn a child's body stiff until they inevitably passed on in agony. After his brother's funeral, John Greed gave him a choice. He offered the boy a place to belong so he would never be alone again. But Ray reveals the sinister truth. This entire situation was manufactured by greed. Both sides were planning to betray each other for wealth. Ray remains cold and analytical. He demands the bank credentials and password as the price for their survival. Suddenly, John Greed snaps. Driven by desperation, he lunges for the magical deer. He believes having it will revive his dying company. A deafening blast echoes through the air. Skyle uses his last bit of strength to pull the trigger on his own boss. Mikhail rushes to catch the falling representative. Even after learning the truth, he cannot bring himself to abandon the man who saved him. As the life fades from John's eyes, Mikhail promises to stay with him until the very end. It is a heartbreaking display of devotion. Ray watches the scene with his glowing blue eyes. For the first time, he admits that he simply cannot comprehend such loyalty to a monster. Ray stands over the fallen representative and asks the heavy question. Why does Mikhail still show respect to a man who caused so much suffering? The truth is revealed to be far more sinister. John Greed poisoned Mikhail to keep him as a loyal hunting dog and intended to abandon him when he became useless. Mikhail reflects on his childhood when John was the only one who showed him warmth. To a child lost in the dark, a single hand on the head feels like a guiding star. Even if that star has dimmed and the man has changed, Mikhail refuses to believe his path was a lie. He will stay loyal until the very end. With tears streaming down his face, Mikhail declares his final answer. He will continue to respect the man who picked him up from the dirt. This display of loyalty reminds Ray of the only person he ever admired. Niles was a leader who stood apart from everyone else. Niles possessed a spectrum of emotions that Ray could never understand or mimic. Ray wonders if the strange feeling he had for his former boss was actually respect. The moment of reflection is shattered as the remaining members of the Skyle mercenary company surround them with guns drawn and fire in their eyes. The lead mercenary orders his men to make them pay in blood for their failed mission. They are trapped with nowhere to run. Mikhail offers to stay behind to buy time, but Ray has already started to release a terrifying surge of mana that shakes the very ground. Ray remembers his mentor words about enlightenment. To reach the second circle of magic, a mage must be true to themselves and find their own path. Chains of pure mana explode from Ray's hands as he activates a powerful domination spell. He has perfectly copied the magic he saw only once before. The massive rock deer that were once fleeing have returned under a new master control. They charge into the mercenaries with unstoppable force. The hunters have become the prey as the beasts crush the mercenary ranks. Mikhail is stunned to see Ray controlling an entire army of monsters. The battle is over in an instant. As the herd of monsters bows to its new master, Mikhail can only conclude that this boy is a gift from the heavens. The wasteland is silent as a herd of massive rock deer gathers. Among them is a tiny blue calf, a mutant born without the typical gem on its forehead. Veronica watches in awe as the little creature bleats for its mother. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. A blinding blue light erupts from the horizon as the legendary prismatic deer reveals its true form. Its body is made of pure radiant energy, casting a glow that reaches across the entire sector. John Greed is frozen in disbelief. Tears stream down his face as he recognizes the very creature that saved his life decades ago. He realizes his search is finally over as the majestic beast stands before him. The legendary gem on the deer's head pulses with overwhelming power. Blue mana flows like liquid starlight, washing over the entire herd and the humans alike. It is a miracle occurring in the middle of a desolate wasteland. Knowing his end is near, John hands Mikhail a bank card containing his life savings. He puts on a mask of cruelty, hurling insults and pushing his loyal assistant away. He wants Mikhail to live a life of freedom, unburdened by a dying old man. Ray looks past the harsh words and reveals the truth. John's heart was filled with pure white mana the moment he mentioned Mikhail. He treated him like family, shielding him from the dirty work of the mercenary world until his very last breath. Ray observes a small star within Mikhail's vessel. It is the physical manifestation of conviction, the unwavering belief that one's path is right. Even without human emotions, Ray can see the fire of will burning inside the boy. But they are not alone. From the shadows, a mysterious figure in a smiling mask watches everything. He admits that even he was too terrified to interfere, knowing that one wrong move against the legendary deer would have shattered him like glass. Just when the dust settles, a mysterious figure cloaked in shadows emerges from the mist to challenge our heroes. The stranger wears a terrifying mask with ink drawings that twist and move as if the face itself is alive. Identifying himself as Curiosa, the masked man points a bandaged finger at Ray, demanding to know his true identity. Ray remains cold and analytical, quickly realizing that the man standing before them is a highly dangerous mage. Losing his patience, Curiosa releases a massive wave of mana that tears through the ground and pins his targets down. The mage's playful facade shatters into a monstrous grin as he threatens to tear the children to shreds. Veronica can barely breathe as the suffocating pressure of a Circle 4 mage crushes her spirit. But Ray does not flinch. He looks the killer in the eye and tells him to go ahead and finish the job. Ray reveals a deadly catch. If he dies, the secret Curiosa is desperately searching for will disappear forever. The mere mention of the word curiosity stops the mage's bloodlust instantly, turning his rage into sudden intrigue. Ray seizes the momentum and offers a high-stakes gamble. 4 answers for everyone of his own. Curiosa accepts the trade and reveals his past as an executive for the sinister Merc Red organization. The mage admits he has been stalking Ray from the shadows of his victims, watching every move he made. He explains the legend of Blue, a mystical creature whose memories and power are stored within a glowing forehead gem. Curiosa reveals that his leader, the professor, has a twin gem that was once part of a legendary rainbow. The mage's mana flares up again as he confesses his deep hatred for the man who stole his emotions and humanity. The twisted executive bursts into a fit of manic laughter, finding Ray to be the most fascinating creature he has ever met. Seeing a chance for revenge, the masked mage agrees to help Ray find the path to the professor's hidden lair. Curiosa reveals a shocking truth about a mysterious professor who can control human emotions and force them to follow his absolute will. Ray demands to know where this professor is located, but the eccentric mage is not ready to spill all his secrets just yet. Curiosa activates a powerful binding spell on a magic ring, for Ray warning him that finding the professor is impossible for now. The ring is handed over, allowing Ray to track the other executives, while keeping his own location hidden from any lurking assassins. Ray focuses his energy and feels the presence of 4 other rings, signaling that the hunt for the organization has truly begun. Curiosa explains that if the other executives fall one by one, the professor will have no choice but to finally show his face. Then the mood shifts as Curiosa turns the tables and asks Ray how a child is able to manipulate the emotions of others. Ray stands his ground and flatly refuses to answer, causing the air to grow heavy with tension. The rejection sparks an explosive rage in Curiosa as he prepares to punish the arrogant brat for refusing his curiosity. Curiosa charges forward with a terrifying dark energy and vows to tear Ray to shreds for his defiance. Just as things look dire, Veronica steps in with a bizarre speech about saving the best strawberry on a cake for last. Surprisingly, the logic works on the twisted mage, as he decides to keep an eye on them for a more satisfying conclusion later. Curiosa vanishes into a swirling vortex of shadow, leaving a chilling promise that they will meet again on the battlefield. On their way back, the duo encounters the herd of prismatic deer, gathered on the cliffside watching them depart. Little Fran appears to say one final goodbye, and Ray watches in silence as the baby monster returns to its family. Inside the car, Veronica finally finds the courage to ask Ray about the mysterious power Curiosa was so desperate to understand. Ray realizes he can no longer hide the truth from those closest to him, and decides the time has come to reveal his secret. Back at the sector, Ray drops a massive bombshell and reveals that he has always been able to see the raw emotions of everyone around him. Ray drops a massive secret. He can actually see human emotions through the colors of mana. His eyes can perceive every flicker of energy gathered within a person's heart. Veronica and Philip are completely stunned by this impossible claim. Ray reads their current mana as dark green, which means they are totally confused. But that is not all. Ray reveals he can also manipulate and control those emotions at will. To prove his power, he calls over a waiter and hands him a single shilling as a tip. Suddenly, the waiter erupts in manic joy as Ray injects intense positive emotions into him. Then comes the darkest truth. Ray admits he cannot feel any emotions of his own. Instead of being scared, his companions accept him and call him their true friend. Ray is left puzzled by the concept of friendship, as it is something his logic cannot grasp. The next day, the group travels to a rundown house, seeking answers about the Black Rain. Ray detects a vessel with black mana hiding inside the silent building. They find a man named Hender trembling inside a storage chest to hide from debt collectors. Ray pulls out a bottle of rare luxury alcohol to loosen the man's tongue. Hender reveals a glowing sprout that somehow survived the lethal contamination of the Black Rain. He explains that months ago he found a collapsed traveler in the desert who ate like a beast. To pay for the food, the stranger gave him several mysterious seeds with a cryptic warning. The traveler is revealed to be a powerful woman with piercing green eyes and a dangerous aura. Hender recounts the story of the mysterious traveler who left him with seeds that can grow without water. He felt like the man was just messing with him, but his curiosity got the better of his annoyance. This mysterious figure was an inhumanly handsome mage who could manipulate magic and seeds alike. Despite his gluttonous appetite, he carried an aura of deep mystery that left a lasting impression on Hender. As Ray offers to buy the seeds for 10,000 shillings, each Hender sees a golden opportunity. He plans to bleed the wealthy-looking boy dry and demands a much higher price for the rare items. Suddenly, a group of thugs interrupts the deal. They have been hunting Hender for his unpaid debts, and they are not looking for a conversation. The leader of the Melum gang swings a spiked bat with lethal intent. Hender cowers in terror as his past mistakes finally catch up to him in the worst way possible. Ray steps in and manifests his own fire magic to block the strike. He reveals his identity as a mage, leaving both Hender and the thugs speechless at his sudden display of power. Ever the cold strategist, Ray uses the life or death situation to his advantage. He raises the price for the seeds while Hender is still being targeted by the gang members. After securing the seeds for a hefty sum, the group arrives in Sector 47. Ray has them change into cleaner clothes to act as bait for the local gangs. Ray does not waste any time and begins his hunt. He ruthlessly beats down every gang member he finds to extract information about the local leadership. The team visits a massive library to research the Black Rain. While Philip looks into finances, Ray wanders toward the children's section, thinking of the stories told by Grandma Viola. As Ray drops a book, a mysterious woman picks it up for him. Her gentle appearance is a mask for the terrifying aura of bloodlust that instantly puts Ray on high alert. Ray stands face to face with the mysterious Crimson Lady in the bookstore. She is a Circle 2 mage, and her beauty hides a dark secret. Ray notices a red gem around her neck. This is no ordinary piece of jewelry. It pulses with a strange energy that catches his cold eyes. Using his unique vision, Ray sees something truly abnormal. Inside this woman is a massive vessel of pure negative emotion. She should be suffering from mana poisoning, but she remains perfectly calm. Ray wonders if she is somehow controlling her own inner darkness. As she walks away, Ray realizes she looks exactly like Philip's mother. Could this powerful mage be the family he lost years ago? Philip is unsure. He knows that if it were really her, she would have recognized him immediately. The doubt weighs heavily on the young boy. Out in the streets, chaos is erupting. Two rival gang leaders, Melum and Dunine, are screaming at each other over territory. Ray watches the scene and sees that both men are filled with hesitation rather than true rage. He decides to give them a little push. Ray manipulates the mana in the air and forces their suppressed negative emotions to the surface. He is turning their inner doubt into a violent explosion. The effect is instant. The two bosses lose all control and start lunging at each other with murderous intent. A full-scale street brawl breaks out as their subordinates join the fray. The once quiet sector is now a war zone of pure chaos. Ray explains that emotions follow a path. When they pile up past a critical point, they must explode outwardly through action. Once the energy is exhausted, the vessel reaches equilibrium. The gang members drop to their knees, exhausted and confused by their own sudden outburst. Melum tries to throw one last punch, but Ray catches it effortlessly. His physical strength is far beyond anything these street thugs can comprehend. Ray tells them to stay out of it. He grips their hands with crushing force, and the gang leaders scream in absolute agony. He forces both bosses to their knees and begins his interrogation. He wants to know why children in this sector are vanishing. Melum reveals a chilling detail. While on patrol, their comrades were taken in the blink of an eye with no sign of a struggle. All that was left behind at the scene was a mysterious pool of red light. Ray's eyes narrow as he recognizes the signature of the Merc Red organization. Ray stands tall and makes a promise. He's going to find those missing kids and destroy anyone who stands in his way. Ray knows the kidnapper is about to strike again and prepares his magic. According to his analysis, a child vanishes every few days, and today is the day for the next abduction. To find them, he must treat magic as a simple puzzle of mana and discrete parts. He enters a deep state of concentration to expand his detection radius across the entire sector. The world transforms into a grid where he can track every single element of mana and its path. Suddenly, he spots a target moving in the shadows of 18-2 Street. A dark hand reaches out from the void to snatch an unsuspecting child from the street. Ray's eyes snap open as he pinpoints the exact location of the magical abduction. He leaves his companions behind, moving like a silver blur through the city streets. He arrives just in time to see a pool of red magical light consuming the area. The mysterious kidnapper vanishes into thin air right before his eyes. The trail leads him straight to the front gates of a massive abandoned mansion. Veronica warns him that the gates are sealed with a powerful high-level locking spell that she cannot undo. She introduces Nero, a stray cat she befriended who can easily slip through the bars and scout ahead. If Ray can share senses with the cat, he can see exactly what is happening inside the estate. But sense sharing requires a deep emotional bond, something the analytical Ray famously lacks. Instead of giving up, Ray decides to brute force the connection using dozens of magic formulas at once. He offers a rare moment of gentleness to the creature, finally linking his mind to the small animal. The magic is a success, and Ray finds himself looking at his own face through the eyes of the cat. He sends Nero into the mansion to uncover the truth behind the missing children. But the mission takes a turn when the cat is suddenly picked up by the Crimson Lady herself. Ray infiltrates the silent mansion only to find the mysterious woman from the bookstore waiting for him. Her eyes gleam with a dangerous recognition. As she reveals, she knows he is a powerful mage who used domination magic on her cat. Looking deeper, Ray sees the swirling core of mana within her. She is a powerful Circle 4 mage with a heavy atmosphere of negative emotions that seems ready to explode at any moment. The next morning, Ray returns with Veronica and Philip to confront the lady directly. She welcomes them with a chillingly warm smile, as if they were long-lost family members returning to the fold. Inside the mansion, the lights are dead, and the air is heavy with a binding spell. Ray feels the presence of his rival Dunine somewhere in the darkness, but the main hallway leads them toward a room filled with activity. They discover a large dining hall where children from the street are being served hot meals. The woman introduces herself as Linnea and claims she provides a sanctuary for those abandoned by society. Ray sits down for the feast and observes the scene with a cold eye. Linnea treats them with extreme kindness, but her mana is a swirling vortex of obsession and regret that she desperately tries to suppress. He witnesses a glow of light orange mana surrounding her, which many would mistake for pure maternal love. However, Ray knows that such intense emotions can easily twist into something far more sinister. As they eat, Ray realizes a terrifying truth. The children around him are empty shells. They act happy and talk about their new lives, but their mana vessels are completely void of human emotion, just like his own. Linnea returns with a special dessert and insists they all try it. Ray realizes the bright red pudding is laced with a powerful narcotic designed to dull the senses and force compliance. The infiltration begins as Ray and his crew are carried deep into the heart of the mansion like trophies for the master of the house. But Ray is never caught off guard. He anticipated the sedative herbs and took a counteracting medicine before entering. He recognized the scent of the herb known as blackout in the garden. It is a potent hypnotic that leaves most victims helpless. Years ago, Niles taught him that knowledge of medicinal herbs is the only difference between life and death in the back alleys. Ray fakes unconsciousness and wakes up in a room filled with toys. It is a golden cage designed for a child who no longer exists. He is not alone. Dunine is bound and gagged nearby. His eyes are wide with a primal terror that screams for a savior. The door creaks open, and Linnea enters. The mask of the motherly saint is about to slip away to reveal the monster beneath. She raises her ruby necklace, and a sinister purple mist begins to coil around Dunine like a hungry serpent. The gem drinks every drop of emotion from the boy, until his mind is nothing but a hollow and empty shell. Linnea turns to Ray with a chilling smile. She calls him her son and promises that your mother will protect you this time. She attempts to harvest his soul, but the gem remains cold and dark. The cursed artifact has finally met its match. Ray rises with a terrifying calm. You cannot steal emotions from a monster who has never felt them to begin with. Flames erupt as Ray demands to know the origin of the necklace. The predator has suddenly become the prey in her own home. He realizes the gem is actually a seal. It is the only thing keeping Linnea's shattered mind and bursting emotions from exploding. The seal breaks. A catastrophic burst of mana shreds the room as Linnea screams for the son she lost long ago. The dust settles, but the hunt is only beginning. Ray locks onto her mana signature and prepares to strike her down. He finds a cracked photo on the floor. It is the face of a boy who looks exactly like him. The mystery of the mansion deepens. Ray uncovers a secret that explains Linnea's obsession, but he is about to be hit by a violent ambush. He stares at a shattered picture frame and realizes the boy in the photo looks exactly like him. Searching further, he pulls a child's diary from a hidden drawer and reads about a once happy life. A final note reveals a heartbreaking failure to protect the child, ending in a desperate apology. Just as the truth settles in, a massive desk flies through the air, nearly crushing Ray against the wall. One of Dunine's enforcers stands there with eyes burning, with a rage that Ray recognizes as completely fake. The man screams about protecting the madam, but Ray easily predicts the incoming clumsy strike. With a single fluid motion, Ray counters the lethal blow and realizes the entire mansion is turning into a trap. He sprints through the corridors, narrowly avoiding a mob of brainwashed servants who want his head. Magic sparks from Ray's feet as he boosts his speed, desperate to find his friends before the building collapses. He finds Philip bravely defending himself with a broom, and they quickly regroup to search for Veronica. They find her just in time, but Veronica has already trapped the attackers in a swirling sphere of energy. Ray explains that Linnea's madness stems from the loss of her son, who was his identical double. As the mansion crumbles, Philip chooses mercy and decides they cannot leave the madam behind. They burst through the final door, only to be met by a literal storm of red mana that threatens to tear them apart. At the center of the hurricane, Linnea stands consumed by her own power, weeping for the son she can never bring back. The mansion is turning into a literal death zone. Linnea has completely lost control, and her magic is creating a massive mana storm that threatens to tear everyone apart. Philip realizes the truth. Linnea is trapped in her own trauma. Her magic output is exceeding her limits because her heart is breaking and her mana vessel is about to shatter. There is only one way to stop the explosion. Philip suggests that Ray must share her emotions to calm her down, but the cold protagonist has never felt a thing in his life. Ray knows his limitations. He lacks the human warmth needed to reach her soul. Sending a normal boy like Philip into that hurricane would be a death sentence, but Philip refuses to back down. He knows the agonizing grief of losing family more than anyone. He steps up to be the bridge for Linnea's shattered heart. Ray focuses every ounce of his power to strengthen Philip's body. This is a gamble with their lives as they prepare to face the full weight of a mage's sorrow. Philip marches into the storm. The wind screams and the mana feels like 1,000 needles piercing his skin, but he does not slow down for a single second. The air is thick with the elements of weakening and exhaustion. Philip's strength is being sapped away by the very atmosphere, but he refuses to let go of his mission. As he struggles, he remembers the day his own mother left him behind. That shared feeling of abandonment is the only thing keeping him moving through the chaos. With one final push, Philip reaches Linnea and pulls her into a tight hug. He whispers that it is okay and that he is right there with her. The madness begins to clear. Linnea sees her lost son in Philip's eyes, and the terrifying mana storm finally starts to settle as she breaks down in tears. Watching them triggers something deep within Ray. For the first time in forever, a corner of his heart feels hot, and the emotions he tried to bury are rushing back. He remembers Niles. He remembers the bridge and the day everything was taken from him. He can no longer pretend to be a machine without a soul. Ray accepts the pain and the grief. In that moment of pure honesty, his unstable second mana ring finally completes with a massive surge of power. But the peace is shattered when the masked executive Curiosa emerges from the shadows. The predator has come to collect, but he has no idea what he just walked into. Ray pins him down instantly with a terrifying bloodlust. He makes it clear that if the mage even thinks about touching his friends, he will be the last thing he ever sees. Ray stands firm, his glowing blue eyes piercing through the shadow. Don't even think about touching them, or I will kill you. The masked observer Curiosa is stunned as Ray releases a massive wave of mana. Last time he barely had one circle, but now he is at least level 3. Ray realizes Curiosa is lurking nearby for one reason only. He wants to eliminate Madame Linia before Ray can get the information he needs. Curiosa is not afraid, but fascinated. He wants to know where Ray was born and what his ultimate goal is. Ray offers a deal. Back away from Philip and Linia if you want to learn how to control emotions. Ray commands Curiosa to leave his investigation alone. He has no more patience for the organization's interference. Linia lies on the ground as a red gem suppresses her soul. To free her emotions, Ray must destroy the cursed jewel. Curiosa warns that breaking the gem might shatter her mind. He expects Ray to hesitate and value the information over the woman. Ray remembers Walter. He knows that even if her vessel is damaged, she might still be able to communicate. With a single strike, Ray smashes the red gemstone. Magic fragments fly everywhere as Curiosa stares in disbelief. The red aura dissipates from Linia's body. The chains that bound her heart for a decade have finally been broken. Ray is finished with Curiosa. If you have nothing more to say, then get out of my sight. Philip wakes up confused, thinking he just had a long nap. Ray tells him nothing happened, keeping the battle a secret. Linia finally wakes up and feels the crushing weight of reality. For the first time in 10 years, she can finally cry. In typical fashion, Ray breaks the heavy mood. He asks if mealtime is over because he never got his dessert. Linia reveals she was once a mercenary who gave up her name for a peaceful life. She wanted a safe world for her child. She lived happily in Sector 47 with her young son Joshua. He was her whole world and her reason for living. But her past caught up to her. 10 years ago, an enemy tracked her down to take revenge for her days as a mercenary. She returned to find her child lying in a pool of blood. The agony of that moment shattered her soul. That was when the mysterious benefactor appeared. He gave her the red necklace to bury her pain, turning her into a living doll. Linia finishes her confession, revealing how her grief and the cursed necklace drove her to kidnap the street children. She bows her head in deep shame, telling the orphans she will gladly accept any punishment they see fit. But to her surprise, Dunine and the other children are moved to tears by her tragic story. They choose to forgive her, deciding to help Linia rebuild her life as she opens a new shelter for those in need. With the mansion repaired and the children safe, Ray and his group prepare to depart for their next destination. Ray and Philip hit the road, leaving the peaceful sector behind to continue their dangerous mission. The Black Cat Nero has officially joined their crew, refusing to leave Veronica's side. Before leaving, they recovered a mysterious diary that belonged to Linia during her days as a mercenary. The pages describe a terrifying legend, a massive mechanical castle that was seen walking through a fierce sandstorm. As they drive, Ray recalls the face of Niles, the man who gave him the car and taught him how to survive the streets. The group finally arrives at the towering gates of Sector 46, a place where Niles once held great influence. Suddenly, Walter Ring begins to glow with a violent red light, signaling that Merc Red executives are operating nearby. The streets are completely deserted, leading Ray to realize that a massive gang war is currently tearing the sector apart. Without warning, a wounded man sprints past them, desperately trying to escape unseen pursuers. A group of armed thugs leaps across the rooftops, closing in on the lone survivor with lethal speed. Ray catches sight of a distinctive flower tattoo on the neck of the fleeing man. He recognizes the mark immediately. It is the symbol of the very organization that Niles was once a part of. Ray gazes at the intricate tattoo on the fugitive's shoulder. It is the image of a lotus, a flower that finds its strength by blooming in the thickest mud of the streets. In a sudden flashback, we see Niles in his prime. He founded the Lotus organization with a single noble goal. He wanted to help the kids of the street find their own path to success. The group grew beyond anyone's expectations. Soon they controlled 3/4 of the entire sector, with hundreds of loyal members following Niles' every command. But Ray sees through the mask of the past. He senses the lingering regrets within the fugitive. The vessel of his heart is filled with attachments he cannot let go. Disaster struck when greed poisoned the ranks. Brothers turned on each other in a storm of bullets and betrayal. The legacy Niles built was shattered in a single night of violence. As more thugs arrive, Ray steps forward with terrifying speed. He manifests a wall of mana that deflects incoming fire effortlessly. The attackers stand frozen in shock at the sight of a real mage. With a simple gesture, Ray increases the gravity in the area. The thugs collapse to their knees as if the weight of the entire world has just dropped onto their shoulders. The fugitive looks at Ray back and sees a hauntingly familiar shadow. The way the boy moves and his cold efficiency remind him of Niles himself. Could his old boss still be alive? The name of the traitor is Brooke. He was the one who fired the shot at Niles on the bridge. He led the faction that brought in powerful outside mages to finish the coup. The conversation is cut short as the roof suddenly explodes. The flame assassin descends from the shadows with a wild grin. He is eager to turn this alleyway into a furnace. Beside him, the ice assassin readies a deadly barrage of shards. They have found their target, and they do not intend to leave any witnesses behind. Ray does not flinch as the magic builds around him. He decides that instead of ending them, he will capture these assassins alive. He needs the information they are hiding in their heads. Ray watches with a cold gaze as three mages unleash a combined assault of fire, ice, and lightning. The battle is decided before it even begins, as Ray stands tall against the three elemental attackers. While his opponents are stuck at Circle 1, Ray has already ascended to Circle 2, giving him the ultimate advantage. By understanding the flow of mana, he counters lightning with earth and fire with water, neutralizing their spells instantly. The mages are paralyzed with fear as they watch their active magic shatter into useless pieces before their eyes. With a single cold gesture, Ray crushes his foes into the pavement, leaving them completely at his mercy. Ray returns to his companions with the mages in tow, along with a survivor named Colin, who was saved from the chaos. He reveals mysterious red gems extracted from the enemy's chests, confirming a dark connection to the infamous Merc Red organization. They arrive at a hidden container base, where Colin is finally reunited with the struggling remnants of the Lotus Group. Panic erupts as the survivors pull their weapons when they realize Ray is a mage. However, the tension breaks when they learn he was the hero who supported Niles in Sector 50. Colin explains Niles' grand vision to end street violence by building a sanctuary for orphans through the power of Lotus. That dream was shattered when Brooke betrayed the group, causing a bloody civil war that left Niles for dead. With their faction in dire straits, Colin bows and begs Ray for help to save their home from the invaders. Ray remembers the lingering attachment Niles showed before death and wonders if his true legacy is still hidden in this sector. Suddenly, a latent spell activates within a captive, and a terrifying voice speaks through the body to target Ray directly. The tension is thick as Ray stares down the man responsible for the chaos in Sector 46. Ray demands to know if this bound prisoner is truly the leader of the assassins he just defeated. The man identifies himself as Pell and shamelessly admits he treats his own subordinates like expendable tools. Ray knows this man is dangerous, but he remains calm as he searches for the truth behind the enemy plans. Pell's eyes glow with a sinister purple light as he begins to realize Ray is no ordinary child. He boasts that he is an almighty existence who watches over the world from the heavens. A terrifying shadow looms as the executive claims he can find and kill Ray at any moment. But Ray is 2 steps ahead and reveals he has already tracked the man's real body to a secret base. Ray points out the exact building in the center of the first street where the enemy is hiding. The secret is out as Ray identifies him as a high-ranking executive for the Merc Red Group. Rage and mana erupt from the prisoner as he realizes his identity and location have been exposed. Ray mentions the mysterious professor and demands to know why they are interested in the rainbow. Pell declares he is the strongest mage in the world and challenges Ray to prove his worth. He tells Ray to crush every one of his subordinates if he wants a chance to stand against him. With a chilling laugh, the phantom image of the executive dissolves into a pool of blood. Veronica rushes to Ray's side, noticing the heavy toll the magical confrontation took on his body. She immediately begins to channel her pure white mana to heal the deep wounds on his hands. They visit the hospital ward, where dozens of children are suffering from the effects of enemy magic. Veronica is devastated by the sight of the innocent victims who have no doctor to save them. With Ray's encouragement, She prepares to use a massive wave of healing magic to save everyone at once. A blinding light fills the room as her powerful mana washes over the children and mends their broken bodies. Ray realizes that this rare white mana can only be produced by someone with a heart of gold. Ray vows to win this war so he can find what his former mentor Niles left behind in this city. Veronica is still worried about Ray's scars and carefully applies ointment to make sure he recovers fully. Ray remembers a time when his own cold emotions almost consumed him and turned him into a monster. It was Veronica's bright mana that appeared like a sun and gave him back his reason. He looks at her and simply says that she is the sun in his life. Veronica's face turns bright red as she screams in pure embarrassment from Ray's unexpected confession. Deep in the shadows of the sector, the streets are a literal death trap. Every morning supplies are dropped at the border like bait for a trap. It's not a gift, it's a mockery. They want the starving to fight for every scrap. Meet Kalen. He's the leader of the second squad and he's sick of being the prey. His mission is simple: secure those supplies or his people won't survive the week. But he knows something is wrong. Ray watches from the shadows. He realizes that every battle has been rigged. Their retreat paths are always blocked. Their every move is predicted. It's as if someone is watching them from the heavens. This isn't a war, it's a game. A sick executive is dragging out the conflict for pure enjoyment. He is toying with the lives of the poor like they are nothing but pieces on a board. Inside the transport truck, the tension is thick enough to cut. Ray remains cold and analytical while the others tremble. He needs to find a way to exploit the enemy's twisted disposition. The moment they arrive, Kalen barks orders. They have to move fast, secure the perimeter, load the rations. Every second they spend in the open is a second closer to death. Gunshots ring out. The enemy is already here. They move with terrifying speed. Kalen screams for his men to take cover, but they are being pinned down by precise fire. Suddenly, a massive barrier of light erupts. It stops the bullets cold. Veronica has unleashed a magic barrier of such immense scale that even the hardened veterans are left speechless. As they scramble to escape, a soldier named Bruno freezes. He has a clear shot at an enemy, but he can't pull the trigger. He knows the face under that helmet. It is his own brother, Mark. The hesitation is fatal. Kalen has no choice and fires his weapon. A bullet tears through the air and ends the life of the boy who was once Bruno's world. The tragedy of the street knows no mercy. Ray watches the fallout. He sees the negative emotions swirling like a storm. But then he notices something strange. Among the grief, there is a spark of bright yellow joy from a traitor in their midst. The reality is brutal. Loyalty is a luxury no one can afford. Most of these people only follow the strongest side to survive. The betrayal is already rooted deep within the group. But the nightmare is far from over. A spell hits the truck and they are forced to stop. Multiple cars filled with assassins are closing in. Ray steps out into the road. The real hunt begins now.